Alrighty, there we go.
Oh shit,
We're
my camera's
live.
on.
Welcome everybody to our first episode of TTRPG Talks.
Woo!
I'm Syrup. If you haven't seen me, hello. And Waffles is over here.
Hello.
And everybody want to introduce yourselves. We have a couple of friends coming to join us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll jump in.
go for it, Nick.
My name's Nick. I play Relic on Know Your Role. That's about it. Are we doing anything else? Great.
No, we can start with that. That's
Yeah,
good. We'll just
absolutely.
get everyone knowing everyone.
Oh, Joe, I think
Joe, you're muted.
No.
Sorry, technical difficulties. Look at that right off the bat.
Oh man, but you
Have you
fixed
tried
that like
to
a
get it?
champ, though. That was
Yeah, I'm really good at this kind of thing because I edit our show, Know Your Role. I'm the DM and the editor of
Nice.
Know Your Role, which Nick is on. So thanks for having me.
Very nice.
And I'm Goodball. I play Sieghart on the From Afar podcast. And yeah.
Yeah, and I'm David. I also play Seacart on the From Afar. No, I'm just kidding. I am the dungeon master of From Afar podcast and the editor, and we just like to have fun on From Afar.
Yeah,
That's it. So,
I forgot to say
yeah.
that I am a player on the Waffles Maple Syrup stream, and Waffles is the DM.
very nice.
Yep.
Alrighty, so
Excellent.
this is our first episode, but to give you guys a little bit rundown of what we're trying to do with TTRPG Talks is each episode we're gonna bring in a couple of friends from the pod fam slash stream fam groups of TTRPG players, people that we've kind of run in the circles through Twitter or otherwise, however we know each other. We're gonna bring people on. We're gonna talk about everything TTRPG, every little bit, behind the scenes look at how we run our podcasts and streams, what we are looking for, and you guys get to hear the stories of how we all met and all that good
Yes.
stuff. Yeah, so this should be fun. At any point you guys have questions for us, shoot it in the chat because I think Waffles and everyone's going to keep an eye on it, and we'll try to answer them as best we can. I'm sure we're going to ramble. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of fun talking to each other.
Yep.
But we'll do our best to tab that question and get back to it if we're in the middle of something else.
Tight.
Love
Tight.
it.
All right.
All right.
So
Can I say something
yeah.
real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
I just love y'all's names, Waffles and Syrup. It's like so cool. Like,
Thank you.
so cool.
It's pros and cons because we decided Waffles has been known as Waffles his entire life. Like that's just the handle he's always gone by. I've gone by
Yep.
Revica, which is completely unrelated. But when we met and we started dating, I became Syrup. And then so we're like, all right, we're gonna brand it as Waffles Maple Syrup because I'm obsessed with like real grade A maple syrup, not the fake stuff.
Like Adirondack.
Yes, the
Yes.
good
I
stuff.
think that's a chair, Nick.
It's a place. No, but so it's good in that sense. We have a strong sense of branding, but we also, you look at us on Twitter and you're like, Waffles Maple Syrup. What is that? Is that D&D? What is that?
Yep.
So we try.
It works. It
Yeah.
works
You're
well.
telling me like you're not a big fan of like Aunt Jemima's or something like that.
Yeah, if you look in our pantry, you see one bottle of like real good maple syrup from Maine that my wife uses,
Mm.
and then you see the like off-brand Kroger.
Yeah.
I was walking through Costco one day and they had these like pallets of real maple syrup. I had to stop and just admire it. I was like, look at this beautiful, just so good.
I used to, in college, I roomed with a dude from Canada, and every Canada Day he made us take like pure maple syrup shots.
Oh my
That was really fun. That's my maple syrup story. That's it. Sorry, I cut you off.
No. That is awesome. All right. So, I think we did our who we are introductions, but do you guys want to touch on the show and, what you guys do? Do you guys have one show, two shows? How you guys started, things like that?
Sure.
Yeah, I guess we can kind of take it away there, Dave.
Sure.
So we primarily we just have the From Afar main bit Quest for Atlantis, but it all started when Dave was in LA, me and Christian were over in Orlando, Florida, and Andy was going to be going to Chicago for grad school, and we just wanted a way to stay in touch. So we started playing Storm King's Thunder D&D 5e. And as we started playing, we're like, guys, like, this is really fun. This is a good way to stay in touch. We're like, man, what if we made this a podcast? And we like took a long time. Like, we all got mics and we recorded for like a year just to get used to having a mic in front of you, just to get used to like the flow of it, uploading everything, getting used to like some editing and everything. And then after probably a year of that, we ended up switching over. I was running Storm King's Thunder, and but we decided, instead of me running something pre-written, Dave had this like long homebrew campaign he'd been working on for a long time, and I was like, dude, you're gonna run that way better than I'll run something pre-written, even though I kind of just use that as guidelines. Like, this is from the heart. And so we started Quest for Atlantis, and here we are. It's been a wild freaking ride.
That's awesome.
Nice.
That's really awesome.
We definitely spent a year practicing how to podcast, didn't we, Joe?
Perfect segue again, man. This guy just sets him up for me to knock him out. Yeah, so we at Know Your Role did not plan quite as far in advance. We started early last year, January 2019. I am not like a super experienced D&D player. My first experience with D&D was in one of Nick's home games. And that was years ago. And the rest of our friends were coming in and out of their own home games. And I just hadn't played in a while. And I was like, man, I'm so jealous. All my friends are playing D&D and I'm not. Maybe I can trick them into playing D&D with me by starting a podcast. That was basically the idea behind it. So I chose a couple of people who I knew were like funny. We're all close friends. I knew it would be a good dynamic. And I just asked them, like, hey, you want to do this thing? Like, we can put it on the internet, we can not, whatever. One of our players, Marvin, who plays Gorlax, lives out of town. So it was a good way to kind of have him hang out with us when he couldn't make it down here. So yeah, we just started the show, and I was really inspired by some other podcasts that we talked about off mic, like the Adventure Zone, and coming up with like a fully homebrew story and taking all of the story beats and the editing and the music and just like taken all of that by the reins, which has been a huge mistake. Someone please save me. But no, it's been a lot of fun. And yeah, it was just kind of an excuse to get my friends to hang out with me. So it's been great.
That's awesome. Waffles was really the core reason we started this like seriously, but likewise zero pre-planning went into this. We halfway through got better mics, so the audio quality is great.
Yep. To prove how much planning went into it, we started streaming and podcasting our show at episode 6.
Yeah, that's true.
Nice.
We had a nice TLDR that we recorded, try to get people up to speed. But it's been really, really fun. It's been both challenging and like an amazing learning experience, which is like the most cliche thing to say, but is very true.
It is true.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's like one of the cool things about this like weird streaming podcast community is like it's just an opportunity to like meet with your friends, connect with your friends, and like play these really fun games. But also like it's the entry point to actually create content that like you're proud of and that's like fully your own is so low. Like you can just you can just jump in. Like that's what we did with Storm Kings. That sounds like what you guys did. Although I actually, when Nick told me, he was like, yeah, we didn't have any mics or whatever. I was like, I honestly couldn't tell. Like you guys sounded like all like, I don't know. It was really good. You guys did great. So
thank you.
But that's something I think is really cool about this community, aside from how like supportive and like caring it genuinely is. Like you can take like a bunch of kids who do this thing for themselves, and then they just have a way to shout it out to the world and like connect with other people. And that's really, really, really cool.
So did you start podcasting first and then streaming, or streaming then podcasting, or both?
Us?
Yeah.
We don't stream.
Yeah, we've never actually streamed.
No.
That's something that like we wanted to get into, but as of right now, like I was shocked that my camera worked, because whenever we are playing, we do get in a video call and my camera like just shuts everything down the minute it turns on.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad you're here.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Joe can speak to a lot more of the technical difficulties than I can, but like we've tried I mean, I think we're on our third, if not fourth, recording solution, Joe, just in terms of like finding a configuration that works, because him and Neko, Jasmine, live together, and so they're in a slightly different recording situation than the rest of us are.
Waffles, here, you can see my hand through. Hopefully.
Yeah,
There you
and
go.
Oh, weird.
we always start for the first like 5-10 minutes just messing around on camera, and then Joe's like, all right guys, we need this to actually be usable, so everyone turn off your cameras.
Yeah,
Right.
we also don't stream because it shuts our stuff down completely. We would love to in the future if we could get it to work, but yeah, it's
Same.
hard enough just putting a podcast together.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It's actually something we're super pumped about because like literally today, the final part for my new PC build arrives and I will be upgrade. I've had this same laptop since 2013.
Wow.
And
that's me. Mine's 2014, same one. So
Your laptops are champs.
I was like, guys, I want to help edit. I want to help with the whole process and flow of things, especially because if we have more hands on deck, we can put out more and like start streaming and stuff. But I just didn't have the technology. So I buckled down and I was like, all right, time to drop some money and get a nice new rig. And I'm super pumped because after we're done with this, hopefully I will be able to build it. And
so excited. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm excited for you.
For sure. Fingers crossed.
New PC builds are always like, yay.
I recently mentioned to my wife, I was like, man, I've been thinking about it. We should probably get a new computer. And she was like, yeah, does this have anything to do with you trying to stream Know Your Role a couple of weeks ago and crashed and it was a disaster?
Of course not.
Maybe.
No, not at all.
I may have, that's a little bit of color commentary, but yeah, I want to get a new computer as well, Goofy, for the same reason.
Yeah, dude. And you sound like you're on the same boat as me, where it's like you've had it for so long, and it does the trick.
Yeah.
So you keep telling yourself like, there's other things that are more important right now.
Yeah.
Like
just wait till you actually get to play with the new computer, and then you'll be like, why didn't I do this sooner?
All the boys like Andy and Christian have been like playing Overwatch and everything, and they're like, "Oh, Goofy, come play Overwatch with us," and I'm like, "I can't. It won't run, baby."
Yeah, I do worry about what an unadulterated stream of Know Your Role would do to the internet if we did have.
Right.
That's my exact thought process too.
Just got so upset thinking about our show not edited.
Same.
We manage somehow. Carrick's in the stream, one of our players right now in the chat, and you can tell. Yeah, he's.
What's up, Carrick?
Sometimes he's sad faces. I always make fun of him. I wish sometimes I could edit some of the stuff that we say, because we just we shit talk each other so much, and we're just like, maybe we should pause and go back to actually playing the game.
I mean, the thankful leg up that we have that I can at least be thankful for is we've never played together in person.
That's
like
true.
This group has never been in person together.
Oh, really?
So
That's pretty
we
cool.
started on the internet, so we kind of just know how to make it flow in a remote location.
Our dynamic was like built off of that, which is a great segue into how you guys met your groups and like how you guys kind of formed this together.
Yeah.
Joe and I met on Tinder.
Ooh,
Not Grindr, Tinder.
It's Grindr. Get your references right, dude.
Sorry, I haven't been single for a very long time.
Sure, I'll start since Nick, you're
it.
so good at setting me up. But so yeah, there's 4 players in my group. Beans, who plays Jeff, I have known the longest. We went to elementary school together, so I've known him since like 1st grade.
Oh, really?
Yeah, long time. So yeah, he was like a natural pick for me for this because we've been best friends for so long, and like since we've known each other for so long, our sense of humor is like perfectly in sync. So I knew he would be picking up what I was putting down. The other folks, Marvin, I met through some mutual friends. Nick, I met through some mutual friends. Jasmine, I met at a previous job that we both worked at before we started dating. And then like all of these friend groups just after a while just came together. So everybody knew each other already and we were all pretty good friends. And I tried to pick like I didn't want to pick like the 4 people who were already best friends. I wanted to kind of like reach out to the corners of this friend group and pick people who like knew each other and got along, but like maybe weren't the closest in that group. So yeah, I just kind of picked people who I thought would jive well together, and that's how it happened.
Also,
it's
if
working.
Joe had started a D&D podcast without me, I would have kicked his door down on the very
Yeah, and Nick was it was just picking the other 3. Nick was in there from the start.
By the power of Moradin.
I do want to point out the first time I met Jasmine, who plays Neko, was actually at our wedding.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, wow.
Yeah,
Wait, you and Jasmine are married too?
yeah, yes.
Whoa, crazy.
Yeah, that's actually
I'm
that's
always
actually
getting
funny
cut.
you bring that up.
Nick plays
Sorry.
the field.
This is a long running joke with Joe and I.
Is it a
sorry.
joke?
I mean,
Sorry.
She's in the chat right now. Hi, baby.
I see the QC emotes.
yeah, get in the chat. Why isn't my BB in the chat?
Very quick zip
Why-
of the lips.
Why is it my I don't.
Oh,
Oh,
It's okay.
oh
Sorry.
man.
Anyway, sorry. That took a weird turn. I'm sorry not to just like kill the energy there. You guys were doing great.
But yeah, so as Joe said, yeah, I met Joe through. I think Joe is my link into the group. That's how I met Beans and Jasmine and Marvin. So
And Nick,
yeah.
when
That's
you
awesome.
when you guys started your episode 1, had you hadn't even really met any of the other ones before?
Oh no. I'd known them for a couple of years. Like we had there's like a lake house that a couple of us go to like every year, and I'd like seen them there. Like we didn't really, I wouldn't say we like hung out like super often, especially Marvin because he lives out of town.
Mhm. But it wasn't like, all right, let's hello everybody, roll for initiative kind of
Yeah.
thing. Like, okay, got it.
Very cool.
That's cool.
Well,
Go for it, Goof.
yeah, our friend group sort of started at a little high school called Forest Lake Academy down
Nice.
in Orlando. And like I was saying earlier, when I was a freshman, David was a senior, and I had never heard of improv before. And then we had a weekly like gathering of the whole student body, and he did a little improv skit with him and his little improv team, and I was like, this is the funniest thing in the world. I want to do that. And then after he graduated, the improv team didn't like stick around. It wasn't like a high school mandate.
Yeah.
And so I spent the next couple of years trying to bring it back. My senior year, I brought it back. I helped bring it back, I should say.
Mhm.
And that's when I met Christian and Andy, and they'd been friends all through high school. They were sophomores at the time. And quite literally through improv and improv classes and stuff together, I started to get really close to them. And then I sort of reconnected with David because I hadn't seen him in like
Mhm.
3 years.
Mhm.
And
I was seeing you, Goofy. You just weren't seeing me.
I could
Through the
feel
window.
you, but I never saw it, you know?
Yeah. Again,
A
energy
glint off
brought down.
glasses, a high five face kind of coming through my window.
How we roll.
But yeah, and then after I graduated high school, we just created a like sort of improv group. We'd go perform like at a like park in town, and like we would just start doing improv and eventually draw a crowd.
Forgot about that.
Then we all went to the same
really cool.
college for one semester, and then I was like, this college ain't for me. I'm outie.
It was a
But,
very
yeah.
strange college.
And then
Now I'm curious.
like Christian became like one of my absolute best friends. Me and Andy started to get really close and everything, but like I lived with Christian more than once. And when everyone was starting to disperse, we were like, let's do this thing. Let's have a way to connect.
Mhm.
And it honestly has been a beautiful way of saying, because like we don't need to talk every day to be best friends. But now that we have this whole podcast and everything, we are talking every day. And
Right.
so it has been a beautiful little time of like something that started as like Dave's inspiration to me, this little kid that he didn't even know, 13 years old, became my best friends.
Oh.
for sure.
Yeah.
I am
It
going to
was-
need to know the name of the improv group.
So first one, way back in the day, was called Dunamis, which is Latin for dynamite, and it's very stupid. And then
which was way better than the one we went for.
what'd you
We were
guys
like,
go
let's keep that theme, Dunamis Latin. And we went with Ordo Ab Chaos, Order from
Ooh.
Chaos, which is a mouthful and doesn't sound cool at all.
Are you guys also in the Latin club?
I think we should have been, because we were bringing it back. Dead language, not anymore. Let's go.
Amazing.
And then it was just improv
I think
team.
we just improv team after that.
Like
yeah.
we just called it
literally-
IT.
Yeah.
Nice.
You guys want to go hang out with
Nice.
it?
Yeah, when I found out that you all did improv together, like everything clicked, because I was probably at like episode 7 or 8 of From Afar, and I was like, okay, yep, that tracks. It made a lot of sense because you guys riff off of each other in like a really quick kind of way.
Well, it was kind of like from just kind of piggyback off of Gooby's story. When I moved out to LA, I was sort of going through a bit of a rough time because of trying to break into the film industry, and it's not a kind thing to do.
Absolutely.
And so I was like, oh man, what do I do? And then I started listening to the Adventure Zone, and I just got really inspired to be like, oh, let's try to do this D&D thing. And I called Andy, and I was like, do you want to do this with me? And he's like, yes, but we have to get Christian and Goovy because of what you were just saying, that because like we'd done those things before, and kind of like what you were saying earlier, Joe. Just like we just knew that this group would just sort of like mesh, and it basically just takes the pressure off, kind of like.
Yeah,
there's so many times we'll be playing where I'm like, I don't know what we're gonna do, but it's just like, hey guys, do something, and then I'm like, okay, that was way better than what I could have ever thought of.
That is one like really lucky thing that we have, is like I've done so much with all these boys for, I mean, we're coming on 10 years that I've been part of like the whole group and everything.
Crazy.
Because I mean, you've known Andy
for only 10 years, actually.
Yeah, about 10 years probably. No, but you've known Andy forever, and you knew Christian like long before I did, and but it's been about 10 years of like knowing each other's humor, and then like on stage and everything, like just trusting that they'll be able to pick up and like fill in for your weaknesses and stuff. And like there'll be times where like when we have our more dramatic scenes where I'll like say something and I'm like, I don't know how this is gonna go, I'm just gonna put this out there, and like Andy or Christian or David will like meet it so much more beautifully than I could have even thought of. And that is one really lucky thing that we have, is we just have known each other for so long.
Yeah,
and I know I can just trust them with anything.
I think
for sure.
That's one of the things I know we mentioned this a little bit off stream. I don't know that I'm blending the two conversations together, but one thing I miss about, or one of the reasons I wish we did have our cameras on, is because sometimes one of us will do something, usually Marvin, that I think really sets Joe's plans off kilter, and like there'll be a little bit of a pause on Mike, and I wish I could see Joe's like gears spinning, because only Jasmine gets to see it, like gets to see Joe kind of sometimes like his like transformation into a character or things like that, because
it adds definitely like a level of depth into like the story. Yeah, one of my favorite moments from Know Your Role is when, and Joe did not thankfully edit this out, is he's doing some character voice, and Jasmine says, "Stop looking at me while you're doing that," and he says, I don't know who else to look at.
That was from one of the first episodes, and she also mentioned, which I think also made it into an episode, that when I'm coming up with a character voice, apparently I come up with the face first, which I was not aware of, and it's deeply troubling. Probably shouldn't be on a stream.
If we ever do a Patreon, we need a picture of Joe's face associated with each entry.
That's actually really good.
That's a great idea.
It's a good idea. TM.
Oh no, dang it.
Damn it.
I'm not taking notes anymore.
Dave, your face doesn't really change. It's more your mannerisms. Like every time you do slaw, you start to like, but yes, I would like if you could, and then like Falcon, you'll kind of like more broaden up, like
it's all the Botox. That's why my face doesn't change.
Now, I hear they give that away in LA.
They do. It's just like free. If you want some water, no, give me some of that Botox.
Waffles.
In case I missed it, just wondering, how long have you guys been at the podcasting game? Like since day one. What is the year's end?
Go for it, Nick or Joe.
Well,
Joe,
we
started January 2019, like very early in the year. I remember.
That's all. Wait, really?
Yeah.
Shit,
I think right. Is that right? That's right,
no,
right?
It is. Yeah. We just didn't hit the Twitter scene until January 2020. Because at a certain point, I was like, "Hey, Joe, should we?" I don't know, try and get some listeners, and he was like, "You want to, I guess."
Yeah, I mean, really, when we started, I was like, I'm gonna, put it up on the all the platforms just for ease of listening for us. But I mean, I really just made it for us to go back and listen to. I didn't expect, if anybody found it, great.
Right,
But
right.
And you guys just
yeah.
hit that 1,500. Congratulations.
Yeah, well,
Crazy, yeah.
thank you. But
Thank
like,
you.
yeah, in terms of like what Twitter can do for you, I mean, we were at like 300 downloads in January when we joined after a year of it being
Yeah.
out, and like 14 episodes, and then in the 3 months since then, that has
times by 5.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's
It's
me.
been crazy.
I don't know words.
When did we
That's
start
cool.
Waffles? Do you remember?
Yeah, actually. So we went, let's see, to go back in the story. I met Carrick and Varsa and quite a few of the players. I think just those are the last two left, but I met them on Roll20 and got them into one of the homebrew campaigns that I was running on there.
Not streamed, not anything, just
Yeah, not streamed, not anything.
Just a
met
game.
them. Yeah, just met them to play. Skip. 6 months later, they TPK. And
Oh no.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
TPK level 11. And
Oh,
yeah, and then we start playing under Carrick's Discord group. He starts running like this West Marches style game. Skip probably about 6 months later. She joins that Discord group.
not
And now,
knowing anybody. Like I
not
was
knowing
looking for a
anyone.
game on Reddit and I saw Carrick's post and I was like, all right, I'll join you guys and
Yep. So we have the across the country. She came to move with me, and then we.
not quite, actually.
Oh yeah.
Oh, no.
Well, you tell it. You tell it. I'm trying to skip parts of the story here.
So I joined the Discord right when I was planning on moving to Israel. And I was moving across the country. Most of my family's there, so I ended up, him and I hit it off, which is more the story of like how we met. But
waffles and syrup.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I was like, all right, bye, because I was flying to Israel. And
Truth.
Carrick was really awesome in like making the story work for my character, even though I had a crazy time difference as well as everything else. And I moved there and I lived there for like about half a year before I was like, well, either I'm getting settled here or I'm making it work with Waffles. So then I moved across the country again, across the world again.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah.
Holy cow.
Back, and I moved from New Jersey to Minnesota, and
Whoa.
well, New Jersey, Israel, Minnesota, and then I'm here. Once I came here, and this campaign was going on for a while with Carrick and everything, we actually recently kind of finished that up, and we transitioned into this with you.
Yeah, with the Time Has Passed campaign, I decided to take a little different spin. They basically time travel back in time to stop the calamities that ended the world. Every time they go back, they kind of get to load into a new character.
Whoa,
So they
that's
get
cool.
to try out a lot of different stuff.
What a sweet setup.
That's
Yeah,
really cool.
It's
Yeah, it's a
They
really cool
really
setting.
enjoy it. It's like first time Pathfinder 2E. All right, let's let them play a bunch of different classes, and this is how they can do it.
That's really smart.
That's a great
up
way to do
until
that.
all the other campaigns were D&D 5e, and then this one he was like listening to Glass Cannon and wanted to try Pathfinder 2e because it was just released and everything, and it was really, really awesome, and we all wanted to give it a shot. And this is the best and coolest way to as I lose my voice, the best and coolest way to try it all out. So it's been really
that
cool.
is a phenomenal idea.
That's really
Kudos.
smart.
So
Yeah.
but
Thanks.
we all have not met in person ever.
No. And then we
That's
have been
super cool. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then we have been streaming it since December, and we have been podcasting it since very late January, like the 30th of January this year.
Holy
Nice.
cow.
So
That's
we're
wild. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
newbies.
Yeah, no, it was kind of crazy.
No.
When I started our Twitter, I was like, I didn't realize I started it almost, it was like 10 days before the 1 year like anniversary of the first episode
Yeah.
we had recorded,
Nice.
which was kind of crazy to, and that's to what Joe said, I don't think we ever started it with the intention of getting any sort of traction outside of our close friend group. And so that's why it's been really cool. Like to see people talking about things happening on our show that we prompt is
Yeah.
surreal. Like,
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Like
What
that
was
was a
it-
conversation that we all had when we were starting it. Was we were like, look, we don't ever imagine that this will take off, but if even one person like enjoys the story we're telling, like we're going to be playing regardless, might as well
Yes.
record it.
Right.
Yep.
And if even one person likes it, worth the
Mhm.
effort of
That's
like
his
putting this
mantra.
out there.
Absolutely.
That's me, and then we hit at our 3-month period. We hit 1,400 downloads. So
Dang.
And I
Congratulations.
remember for
Thank
all
you.
4 of us, it was super cathartic, a super cathartic moment the first time somebody did a fan art.
Yeah.
right.
Like we
Yeah.
didn't commission the art, like they just did it because they wanted to, and we were all like, "Holy crap!"
That's
That was super
amazing.
surreal for me because up until that point, I had just been doing the art for the show because I
That's
just like
what
to
I
draw. It
do.
was just fun
Yep.
for me to do.
Yep.
And then so yeah, Nick, started posting fan art. People were sending on Twitter, and I was like, man,
Yeah.
this is
You
crazy.
guys have a ton also, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Like
It's been
so
awesome.
exciting.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
And I would be remiss if I didn't shout out Rin, aka Pink Bones, who is
Yeah.
the single largest producer of Know Your Role fan art.
I think she
She's-
might be Moist
she-
Bones now
she
on
pumps
Twitter.
it
Oh,
out,
did she
dude.
change it?
Yeah.
I think her handle is
Oh, okay, still
but
Pink
yeah,
Bones.
her-
Still
Okay.
Pink Bones, yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah, she's phenomenal.
no, I
Yeah.
mean, I think one of the most surreal moments for me, it was late one night, like we were already in bed, and I was like going through my phone, and I had a message, and it was from a guy. And it was just like, "Hey, loving the show," and it was a recording. I was like really confused what was happening. I had to like turn the sound up of what looked like molten metal being poured out of like something into another thing, and someone in the background screaming, "Woo! Hell yeah! Go Moradin!" And then he said something about Relic. I can't remember, but I follow up with the guy. He works in an aluminum factory, or
Oh, that's so cool.
I don't know
Oh,
what the
wow.
right
Wild.
word is. And Relic is like a Warforged blacksmith and everything. And so this
Right.
guy
really?
in New York just like jumps on his camera, and I'm just picturing some like aluminum worker somewhere in New England recording it. Yeah. And
so
I
cool.
remember messaging
That
the
is
group. I was like, guys,
amazing.
we got
That's
the
really cool.
most bizarre but cool, and that guy ended up making some of our pixelated fan art that we've shared before.
That's
That's
awesome.
so
Wasn't it
dope, dude.
Wasn't it just like I was gonna say? I remember like there was a moment where like I think it was Mashed Fries who was doing like there was like a week where it was just like Neko and then Relic and then Jet and
It was oh god,
that was really cool. Basically, is what I'm trying to say.
Mr. Krister draws.
That's right. That's who it was.
He did like three. He did 3 of the 4 group, like 3 out of the 4 back to back, and that was
Mhm.
another one where like we just saw the picture. I didn't know he hadn't reached out or anything like until he made it. So
That's so
Oh
cool.
wow.
The group just makes
Yeah.
me draw their own fan art.
Well, that's what we were doing that with Andy for a while because
Yeah.
Andy, who plays Arius on our stream, he like used to want to be an animator, and I think we just kind of bullied him. We're like, "Hey, you should just draw that stuff," and he's like, I'm not an artist anymore." And it's like, "Hey, you are." No, I'm not. Like,
He
You're
because
the
he had
resident
like
artist now.
yeah,
he had like started doing like one art for like I think it might have not even been Arius. I think it was like for the Storm King's Thunder stuff. He
Mhm.
was
Yeah,
making
yeah.
pasta.
he's making
And
pasta.
and then we were like, "Hey Andy, remember how you made your character? You should do that with all of us."
Yeah. I would be lying if there's not like a little part of me that when I've offered Joe the chance to join D&D campaigns, I'm like, I mean, if you draw any of the characters.
Mhm.
And so sure enough, he did. He came originally as just like a one-time guest player in my Waterdeep Dragon Heist game, and then did some things that completely altered the
You
entire
can't
course.
get rid of me now, bud.
And I was like, all right, fine, asshole, you can stay.
Amazing.
Also, but like your art for like, sorry, I had to scoot forward. um,
Andy's signature WD-40 meeting
it's the
chair.
worst. Your art for Know Your Role stuff though, Joe, is like very cool. Every time I'm listening to an episode and like a new character comes in, I'm like, Instagram. Oh, there he is. Oh, this is so
Thank
cool.
you, man.
Yeah,
Thank you. I
it's very
appreciate
good.
that. Of the 4 times that I've been to college, I dropped out 3 times and I got an art degree once. So
Nice.
it's
Very
paying
nice.
off.
Very
There
nice.
you go.
25% success rate.
Yeah.
I went to school for graphic design, and I somehow still have a bachelor's in science. But
Yeah,
I made it work.
My only. Sorry,
Definitely.
go ahead, David.
Same thing. I graduated with film, but they're like, David Tilstra, Bachelor's of Science. I'm like, motherfucker, I don't know science. What are you talking about? So yeah.
That's what
No,
I get for engineering school.
my only contribution to the Know Your Role art gallery usually never leaves Skype. It's typically like an MS Paint drawing I've done to help the group figure out where we are. Like in one of our episodes where we fight two snake people, I had a very well done. I think Joe would agree. Very well done drawing.
You're lucky I didn't save that picture.
We need that posted on Twitter, please. I need to.
Yeah. So that sounds like another Patreon, Nick. Nick's art on. I would pay for that.
Yeah, that's
the first time.
$20 level, actually.
Yeah. The first
I'm
time
sending
I
it, I'm sending it in our Discord group chat, but my only contribution is the worst little pencil drawing of the three boys.
It's pretty funny.
That looks like a kindergartner. Like
I'm pulling it up right now. Oh no,
but
this is amazing.
I love it.
It has inspired.
Oh,
it has inspired.
Gonna work on the virtual background.
I have to shout out that Rin did finally join. I went over to Discord.
Yes, hi Rin.
Being here. So.
Rin! Hello.
The only time I was actually inspired and quick enough, I draw, but I draw like relatively slowly. The only time I was quick enough to be like, okay, here's a quick sketch is when our goblin in the circus campaign raided the missing sheriff's house and put on all of the sheriff's clothes and the hat, and it was like, this is a beautiful scene. I have to recreate it.
That sounds like such a D&D moment. I love
right?
that.
Small question for everybody.
Yeah.
Do you ever, when you're playing, go like, I'm gonna do something because I think it's a dope scene, and if I could draw, I would want to draw this scene? Like,
absolutely. There's still a moment. There's still a scene from episode 11 of our show that I'm waiting for someone to draw, and I didn't do it because of that. But like immediately as it happened, I was like, holy shit!
This needs to be visual.
Can I ask what scene? Because
it's a scene
I don't know what it is either.
Larry the Aarakocra.
Oh yeah.
I will say.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, because you brought up the snake fight, and like I love. There's so many moments in your guys' show that I love, but like the part where you're with Larry and you have your kind of like boom. Like I was like driving, I like stopped my car and pulled over, and I was just like, yes, this is so cool. And then just all the way through the snake fight, I was just like, this is so funny.
We did get some awesome fan art of the snake fight of Relic.
Their friend,
the snake.
actually, Ptolemaic.
Oh yeah, the one Patrick did. Sorry, Ptolemaic.
Yeah,
I messaged that to him. I'm like, dude, check this out. And then he sent
me a message on Discord. It was like, hey, you should message Ptolemaic. He made something for you guys.
That's amazing.
He was like, I don't know if I should give it to him. I was like, dude, give it to him. Like, it's so
why wouldn't you? Yeah. It's awesome.
My favorite thing is to show my dad our fan art, because he literally could not care. He's like, what's that?
That's the best reaction.
And I'm like, yeah, thank you, Dad. I feel so fulfilled.
Really good point.
I share that emotion with my girlfriend who's never played D&D. She loves it. I love it. And she's like, I admire your passion for it and that you have this whole podcast, but she's never played it. She doesn't listen to our podcast or anything. It just doesn't interest her, different strokes.
Yeah.
But after every session, I call her and I'm like, oh my God. So remember how I was telling you, like we were facing down an armada? Well, this is what happened. And then she's like, that's awesome.
And
I'm like, look at this art. And she's like, cool. Is that you? I'm like, no, clearly it's not me. There's no anchor.
Good point from Carrick is that there was an amazing, you talked about, what scenes you'd want to see drawn and everything. It would be Waffles' elevator scene, if you want to describe what happened there. That
Waffles,
was really
what
amazing.
Do you got on that
elevator? This has nothing to do with the stream or the podcast. This is way back when. But this was, so I played a wizard in D&D 5e for a while. And I was playing the lore wizard. He kind of specialized. I just made him take every lightning and wind spell that I could find. Like he didn't have fireball as a wizard, nothing like that. And
sacrilege.
There was this I purposely didn't want to try to be overpowered, but there was this one scene where we're fighting demons off from this arcanum tower, and so we're going into these mines, and there's this elevator shaft that one of the demons was going to go down, and he had already beaten us there, and he was like halfway down. So my character Grizz just took off and in midair polymorphed himself into a giant gorilla and then fell down on top of the demon, causing the elevator shaft to fall. and
my
they
Huge
just
battle
battled on a
scene.
falling elevator
Falling.
shaft.
Oh yeah.
It was brilliant.
That's
It was-
awesome.
Those are the moments I love about these crazy games that we play. Where it's
You're
like,
right.
so wait, you're a wizard. You flew away, then turned into a gorilla to knock an elevator shaft down, and that's like
While
that's cool.
fighting a
Like this is
demon.
all still
While
good. This is
fighting a demon.
Yeah.
okay.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
And
Yeah.
all of us were
Yep.
stuck up there. We were like, how the hell do we help him now? Like,
No.
My by far like favorite piece of D&D trivia is that the difference between like playing D&D or like another game is like if your brain remembers like you played Halo or something, it remember like the way the brain lights up remembers like that's a thing that happened.
mhm.
But when you play D&D, it lights up the same way as recalling a personal memory that you lived through, like
Yeah.
something
really?
you
Yep.
actually did.
That's
I've
amazing.
heard that.
So like when you're playing D&D, yes, it's imagination, but your brain interprets it as genuine memories that you
You're
went through.
making
And like that's my
decisions. You're
favorite.
making character decisions and you're
Yeah.
experiencing and reacting in real time. So I think that's amazing.
Yeah, like I've never swung an anchor and hit somebody, but if I think about it, my brain's gonna light up like I actually did do
Yeah.
that.
You should consider it, Goovy. They actually do that at a couple CrossFit gyms. Wing anchors.
The minute
Yeah.
COVID's done, I'm gonna find a CrossFit gym with anchors.
Yeah.
The Winsome Cutlass CrossFit gym.
I will say credit to you, Goovy. That was literally one of the things that, no pun intended, hooked me into from afar. I saw the fan art and I was like, is that guy, does he have an anchor on his back? And I was like, oh shit, I have got to watch that. That's incredible.
I appreciate that because quite literally, it wasn't until like the night before we were going to have our session 0 that I had finally figured out my character. And up until that point, I was wrestling with like class and blah, blah, blah. The only thing I knew was I wanted his weapon to be a giant anchor.
Yeah.
That was it.
It's
I-
funny
when you
because
hook onto a character concept, you're like, that's it. I'm going to build off of this.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the one.
I originally envisioned this idea of Relic wielding a warhammer that was essentially an anvil on the end until
Oh,
I
cool.
realized how incredibly absurd that was. But what's awesome is the artwork that Rin recently made with the assistance of Inferential Studios, whose
Mhm.
name I'm
INF.
blanking on, INF, literally made a warhammer that kind of like, it's very evocative of an anvil. Like it looks almost like
Yeah.
an anvil on the end of a. So it was so cool how that
That's
it was
really
like they
cool.
pulled it from my brain
That's amazing.
and put it on
Yeah,
paper.
for
I
sure.
never said that. I never described it as looking that way.
You gave off the
I
vibes.
love those little moments, which is like another beautiful thing about putting your game out into the world is like how you're picturing something and then how someone who's just listening and is an audience member pictures it. Because I remember Nox Batty, our first mate on the our Discord server,
Nox.
who's done so much for us.
She's amazing.
She messaged me because I'd commissioned her to do a little art for Seacart, and she goes, "Hey, quick question. This might sound weird. Does Seacart's anchor have like blades or like sharpenings on it?" I was like, "Oh no, it's like a pretty standard anchor." She goes, "Oh." This whole time I was picturing like that there was attached blades to it, and I just thought that was like the most metal thing ever. And I was like, "Well, now I want there to be blades on it." I never
Should have
thought
led
of that.
with
I
that,
wasn't
and I would have said yes.
Mhm.
It does now.
It does that. Yeah.
I literally messaged David and I'm like, "How can we put blades on my anchor?" He's like, "Oh God, you
Yes.
probably have to give it a slaw again." I'm like, "No."
No.
I spent
Yeah.
the first half of our campaign without my anchor because I
Yeah.
kept giving it to people to upgrade.
I got to
Yeah.
give David. I've got to give David credit there. That's one of my favorite things about him as a DM is how often you allow the players to describe things into existence. Like where I can tell you didn't plan for the thing that they just said to exist, but you're like, yeah, no, that's a thing. Like
Well-
I know, like the shark cannon is kind of a joke.
Yeah. Sorry.
But yeah, things like that.
What is
So,
it? Patrick, the little carrot illusionist magic goblin, was quite literally David made a typo and then we made the bit that he was an actual character and has now become like a fan favorite character. Where on our like a lot of our logo art and stuff, we'll have like a little carrot somewhere.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
how it goes. That's the best way. Like, you don't expect something, and then it just it snowballs into it.
Yes, by far my favorite part of GMing is not knowing what is going to come from my players and then having to react to it.
yeah. We had a
yeah.
moment in our latest episode where I like to think I really threw like a wrench in Joe's plans. And I came to find out later it was really just kind of a little bit of a side swipe that he brought it back on track. But yeah, that is something, you don't try to do as a player, but you just never know what the DM is thinking. I mean, if it's typically. So yeah, I think like the best DMs just find a way to like roll with it rather than saying, no, you can't do, the door's locked. It's adamantium bound and you can't go in there. You've got to go that way. Like, because then players start to, I think that then you become, it's like an Inception when you're in the dream and it starts falling apart. That's what, like, then you start noticing the rails and you're like, oh, okay. So we don't have any agency here.
Yep. I actually told her today, you can't plan for everything. So just don't plan for anything. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, baby.
From Afar oh, hey, Hazel.
Baby on stream.
Hazel.
Hillary didn't want me to hold her because she said it was going to derail the conversation. So.
Okay. It's a good
Definitely will.
Well, we were just talking about being on rails, so that's perfect.
So I have in my D&D career and role-playing game career of like the last 5 or 6 years have pretty much primarily like 95% of that time have always been the DM, save for like one-shots and stuff. Right. And then From Afar podcast and Quest for Atlantis is my first time with like a long-term player. And like I always am like sitting in my seat, like just shouting out David in my mind, and then typically post recording. Because I'm like, dude, I honestly thought I was playing into what you were doing. And then you told me like, I didn't expect you guys to do any of this. And I was like, my bad. I didn't mean to throw you all the way off. I was trying to like respect the work you done. And here I am just crapping all over it.
Well, that's probably like, I don't know. Maybe the other DMs and GMs in the chat or the stream can add to this. That's actually like one of my favorite parts. Cause like, I feel like obviously we have these like story, like the beats of these stories laid out. And it's like, cool. I would like to get to X, Y, or Z, but like, that's only your story. But like, then once you get the other players involved in it, it's like, they'll take it off in such beautiful, amazing directions. And then it becomes a group activity to like bring it back. And it always to me has made this, like every time in From Afar, when you guys have like taken it off the rails, it's always made it better. And so like,
you mean like when we sought out the Lord's Alliance that we were
that was a strange part. Like, hey, I'm gonna go find those guys that are trying to kill me. I was like, oh shit, here we go. I think that was a scary moment.
Can David and Joe, can you guys tell us, I mean, I guess without spoiling too much, but like what is, and maybe that was the moment for you, like the moment, the biggest like oh shit moment where the players did something that you were not expecting or not planning.
You
got one, Joe?
Not off the top of my head.
I'll give you time to think real quick. Right. So like two times I was like giving these fools the plot hook. I was like, all right, here it is. This whole thing is called the Quest for Atlantis, and there's a guy literally being like, hey, go find Atlantis. And I think it was you, Gooby. You were like, I don't want to do it. I was like, oh gosh.
Well, okay.
Oh no.
Like, in that moment, like Seagart's a sailor. Like he was sailing the seas, and I was like, okay, Atlantis. Like he's probably heard of it. It's a legend, you know. And so the guy's like telling us all about Atlantis, and Seagart's reaction was like, guys, this guy's crazy. Clearly, it doesn't exist. And Dave even told me afterwards. He was like, dude, you like stopped me up so hard because I did not expect anyone to say like, no.
Yeah. Well, but like kind of what I was saying earlier, like that gave a moment for like you, Andy, and Christian to like, is the word cauterize? No. You came together and like it, like you came together in that moment, and like then that's what I was saying. It's like the story. It took it out of my court, and then you guys made it your story, and then put it back into my court, and then it's like, okay, now this is why we're doing it, and like that's really cool because like it took it away from this like stupid like I'll give you money to go find this city to like this is why we as players want to go do this thing. Like so like for a moment it was like oh shit, but then you guys like started talking about it and you made it yours, which is really cool. And then the next time, which we didn't get to, was there's a moment where like they're hiding in this room, and they're hiding from like the Lord's Alliance. And I set it up. I'm like, there's a lot of people outside the door. Do not go outside that door. And Gooey's like, I'm gonna go outside the door. I was like, oh god damn it. Like,
Yeah.
so that
I
was
to go
a
talk to them.
I just
Yeah.
listened to that episode.
One of Waffles'
So, yeah.
homebrew rules, not homebrew rules, but one of the things that like stuck with me when I first was talking to him about, because I was relatively new to D&D as a whole when I joined their session. My best friend of also like 10 plus years, we would play a lot together. We just picked it up together. And then like a year later, I was like, let me join other people. And I joined this. But so, you know, he had the most experience. He played since he was little. And I learned a lot about it from him. And his main thing was everybody needs to come into the story with their own, how do you phrase it? Like, everyone has their own motivation to be there.
Yes. So
Yeah.
like when I'm telling people to create their characters, it is you have to come up with your character's reason to be a part of this.
Yep.
Dude,
That's really cool.
That's not
that
my
is
job.
literally what I tell all of my
Mhm.
groups. Like, so I run another campaign. We're doing Descent into Avernus. It's like with my sister, one of my friends, and a couple other people. And like that's always one of my 2 rules is you need to come up with your character's reason for being part of this group.
Yeah.
Solid.
It's not up to me to give you reasons to stay. You need
Exactly.
to have that drive. My
Absolutely.
other rule is I don't want to role play sex stuff. We'll just we'll fade away and we'll pick it back up.
2 solid rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think the whole idea of being a part. I had the same thing with my Waterdeep. Like I made like a session 0 primer. That was like, here are the things like to set the tone of the campaign. Like, hey, this is going to take place in a city with laws and guards who are more than likely going to be able to overwhelm you if you just start treating this like a typical, you know, crazy murder hobo campaign that some people do. But yeah, but then also like, please don't play that lone rogue. Like, I don't want to be here. Like, it's just not fun for anyone else at the table. Like, why are you
Yeah.
here? You know,
Yes.
go play a video game where you're the only player, because like that to me is what you're looking for.
Yep.
But wait,
And it's
Nick,
like
were you
be as
saying
edgy and broody as you want,
that's
Yeah.
but
not the
still
problem?
be part of the party.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brood away.
Personality is personality, but you still need to
That's
have
true,
your
yeah.
own motivation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think some of the fun for me has been, and you'd have to listen to our show a little bit to get a feel for this, is like, I didn't actually necessarily make them come up with a reason for being where they're being, because there are reasons for them to maybe not know why they're doing what they're doing. And I think some of
Yeah.
the fun for me is making them, it's almost like an existential thing. Like, figure out while you're doing it, why you're doing it. Like, why are you here? Figure that out on your own. Let's let the path kind of unfold before you.
And your character can have that journey as well.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. I think that's
figuring
fun to
it out.
listen to. Yeah, to listen to them figure that out. If I can jump back real quick to getting thrown off by our players,
Can't.
there are
We're past
two.
it.
Okay, go for it.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Go for
There's
it.
two
Too
big
late.
moments that I thought of, and I think it was Nick both times actually.
Ah,
But
Appropriate, because it was me
One-
both times for David.
yeah, there you go. One was on the train, and I won't give away exactly what happened, but there was a character that I thought I had set up as being like a villain, like this is a villain, and I fully expected the party to kill him, and they didn't. And that threw me off entirely, because I was like, all right, maybe I got to do something with this guy. I thought he was going to be dead by now, and it ended up like a bunch of shit happened after that.
the context being the party didn't kill this character because Relic was like, hey, wait,
Yeah,
let's not do this. And the rest of the party was like, I don't know. I
As
kind of
a-
think we should.
everybody wanted to kill him. Yeah,
As like a listener though, that was such a cool moment, because like there was a moment where like Nick, you were like, hold on, like the momentum is moving this way, but you were like, this isn't what I would do, and you had this like really cool moment like talking to everyone.
yeah.
And then yeah, Joe, you had to like deal with that later, but sorry, keep
Yeah.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, I loved that Nick did that, because it could have been very straightforward, but he injected this morality into it, which is like perfect for his character, because that's who Relic is. And it allowed me to do a lot more interesting stuff with that character that ended up surviving a little longer than I intended, which
Yeah.
was really fun. And I
was.
think contributed to a lot of like, it probably doubled the length of that train arc, honestly.
Sorry.
And the other moment was in episode 1. And it was also Nick, and I had introduced a character, fan favorite Billups. Everybody fucking hates this dude, but I love him. He's my beautiful son. I think Nick immediately rolled insight on him or something and figured out that he was evil. Like he was just this cute little frog boy, and Nick like got a natch 20 on insight, and I was like, yeah, he's lying to you. It just like right off the bat derailed my whole thing.
I had a moment when I listened to that. Like my heart went out to you when like you were like, Nick's like, I want to roll on that nat 20. I was like, and you were like, oh, damn it. Yeah, he's lying. I was like, oh no, dude, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Well, what's funny about the Billups thing was great because Joe, that was actually I think the very first piece of art you showed us.
I'm still here, but my video stopped.
Oh, okay.
Okay, good.
I'm working on it.
All right. One of the very first pieces of fan art you showed us, you like dragged it into the Skype chat, and it was Billups, and it was like a little frog with like galoshes and like a little hat and a staff. And I was like, oh yeah, I don't know, let me just insight this guy. And that happened. But what's funny about the train scene that Joe mentioned, I was in real life, like I felt awful about it to the point that I messaged him that night and I was like, hey, I hope I didn't like throw things off or make it awkward with the group because like I think I was getting too into Relic. I was like actually mad at the group. I was like, what? No, like why are you doing this? Because I was like in his headspace. And he was like, what? No, dude, it made for like in like probably one of the more dramatic moments of the show. And I think words not work. Party like discontent and that like friction I think makes great drama. And so he made me feel a lot better about it. He's like, oh no, dude, it's fine. I mean, everyone still makes fun of Relic for being a goody two shoes, but
but I mean, I will say
that's
like
the good stuff though.
In that moment, if you had like gone through with it, that would have been like a terrible freaking thing to do.
Yeah, and it wouldn't have been what Relic would have done.
Yeah.
It like confirmed, it really confirmed what was like it. I remember I was like, okay, so the party was right, and that's fine. And that was reflected in Relic later on. He started to get a little bit more character development and saying like, yeah, maybe this isn't my worldview of black and white isn't totally on par.
Hold on.
Okay, well, can you remove the other video because it's throwing all the videos off?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot.
Okay. No biggie.
No, this is great. I am getting PTSD because this exact thing happened with me and how I nerd, and I had to get my phone out and the same sort of.
Oh no!
Here I thought I was doing good work.
Well,
I can
just
quickly adapt if you want me to. I just
no,
didn't...
it's fine. It's fine.
Or Gooby, can you just go?
Like.
Oh wait, no, that wouldn't have your mic then. I was like, could you just go 100% off your phone? But no. I don't know what you look like. What do you look like? That face of yours.
That was very like Art Deco, the way that
everything's shifted.
It's fine. Everyone knows what I look like. It's okay.
Quick, I'll grab a screenshot picture and put your face up here.
Yeah. Hey, I tweeted one. I tweeted a screenshot. So.
That's true. There we go. I'll superimpose it. But
hey, David.
Yes, me.
Quick,
sorry.
DM exercise. Describe Goovy as an NPC for the stream.
So, Goodval Sebastian Maxon is
you spoke him into existence.
There it is.
You literally. I didn't do anything.
Sorry. I stopped talking.
Goodval.
Goodval.
It's all right.
It's working.
It's all right. Let's not focus on that part. I don't want to derail everything with my technical difficulties.
You're just fine. On the topic of derailing Waffles, did you have any GM stories?
Oh yeah. To attempt not to give too many spoilers because it happened recently in the Time Has Passed campaign, they are very slowly realizing that they're collecting relics of these like long lost relics. Some of them are of gods, others are not, but they're kind of these items that are growing in power with them. And the most recent one that they collected, I had next to zero intention of it being this is syrup, so it's everybody's other that messed everything up, but I had next to zero intention of this thing being a puzzle ball. And she was like, well, I have games lore, is it a puzzle? And then she rolled really well, and I was like, yeah,
He went
like
with it.
you do this, and you pop open the puzzle ball and you get the orb inside it. And it was basically like just out of nowhere. It wasn't even meant for her, and now it's with her
mine
character.
now.
That is, yeah. Those moments are
Yeah,
fun.
some
They
crazy
suck.
stuff.
They suck a lot, but also just like gives you a chance to flex those muscles of like, all right, well now, because like we've talked about this before. It's like in the realm of streaming and podcasting, like if something happens on air, like it is 100% canon. So like then it's like, all right, from this point on, how are we going to like make this work within the campaign setting? So also, welcome back, Ubi.
Yes, welcome
Yeah.
back.
I gave. It's kind of a great lesson for DMs though, because like when I started this, I was writing so many like detailed campaign notes for like how the session was gonna go, and now I just go into it like, here's the name of the town, here's 5 people they might run into, here's the buildings there are, and then just kind of let them go.
Yeah,
That's
like
learning how to let
whenever
go.
I DM, and especially when I DM for these boys, my whole gambit is like, I have beats that I want to happen.
Yep.
And aside from that, I just sort of give myself like blocks that I can slot in wherever they might end up. So like an NPC, but I don't know, like I don't go like, this is definitely like the barkeep. I go like, this is a person.
Yes.
And so when they're like, oh, we're not going to go to the barkeep, Dave wanted to go to a tailor in a one shot we ran. And I was like, okay, this person that was going to be something else is now that tailor. Like, here we are.
Yep.
Yeah. One of my favorite things to do, I kind of pick like a what is the word? A Keystone. No, that's a beer. The thing at the
A Keystone Light.
Keystone.
Yeah, Keystone. I pick like one thing and I say like, I'm going to open up the session. Like I'm going to describe that thing. And I might have a couple of bullet points written in my like OneNote document, but I just kind of see what they're going to follow. And like one way I did that with my home game, which is a Waterdeep campaign, is by like every 4 to 5 sessions, I print out a newspaper article, like a front page with like 3 or 4 stories, all of which usually have some tangential connection to them and often reflect something they've done. Like local warehouse burns down mysteriously. And then I kind of see what they follow. And I like literally put it on the table. I don't read it, out loud to them. And throughout the session, they might like look at it and someone will be like, hey, it says there's something here about some like thief named the yada yada. Should we look into that? And that way I've like put some breadcrumbs out, and that way I don't plan all 4 of those stories. I just see like what comes with it.
No, that's awesome.
That's actually
that's really smart.
Yeah, that's really good.
Well, actually, it's. Oh, sorry. Go for it.
No, I was just gonna say like this is perfect for everyone to be able to like steal each other's like resources in this sense, and I wanted to kind of tangentially jump into what you guys have in your back pockets, and that's GMs, that's players, that's just like what resources do you guys find the most useful for you guys?
That's a good question.
I think the DMs can start that one.
Yeah, I mean, I stick like pretty closely to D&D Beyond. That's like my main resource for stuff, since we well, I maybe shouldn't say this out loud. We share a lot of the stuff that the others have bought.
I didn't hear it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Oh, well, sorry. You just cut out. What was that?
Yeah, nothing. Don't worry about it. Don't tell wizards.
All right, cool.
But yeah, I think there's a lot of cool stuff on there. I also just like to Google stuff. Like if I don't know how to resolve something or how to come up with a stat block for something, I'll just see that inevitably somebody else has probably already done it. There's tons of blogs out there in terms of like coming up with homebrew monsters and stuff. And I'm trying to do a lot of homebrew stuff in our campaign. So just like searching the internet for somebody who may have done something similar before. And then I always bounce ideas off Nick and our friend Samaj, who is also an excellent DM and who is showing up in our show now. So listen to our latest episodes as a guest player. But yeah, just bouncing stuff off other DMs, especially because I'm less experienced.
Yeah, I was going to say, Joe is saying that he's bouncing ideas off of us, but as far as story progression with Know Your Role goes, and Jasmine just mentioned this in the chat, Joe texts my wife the entire, like, I don't know, she was scrolling for so long the day that he sent her. He's like, hey, here's the entire storyline to Know Your Role. And she just kept like looking over at me and just like, I'm like, what is happening? Like, is he sending you nudes? Because like
sending you nudes.
Well, that's you.
Very upset.
Ironically, I misheard him. I heard sending you dudes, and that makes it better.
Yeah, it's just pictures of Nick. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, I
Pictures of
had to
Nick.
do this. I had to confide in Hillary because like everybody, it's great friends of mine who are on the show with me, and then at the beginning it was just our friend group who was listening to it, so I had nobody to confide in.
Oh no!
And so I eventually went to her and I was like, please, can I just dump all this on you? Like, I need to tell somebody about what I'm doing.
And she won't tell
Big
me
ups.
anything. Like,
Yes.
but like, okay,
Excellent.
but you can just, what's going
A
on
little,
with Relic?
just a little.
She's like, no.
That's hilarious.
She's sworn to secrecy.
It's funny you say that, Joe, because I know me and David have talked about it on the phone more than once. Being a DM is the hard, like, because the players are all excited about things like after session and they're all talking and like you want to talk with them, but you can't necessarily pull that curtain back for them to like be all the way there with you. You can't share with them all of your excitement because you can't give things away, and
Right.
it's like having this sort of like inside joke with just yourself that you want others to be a part of, but you can't because it'll ruin it for them.
Yeah, after stream nights, that's exactly what Waffles is.
Yeah.
'Cause we stay on the line a little bit, chat and everything. We're all like hype and excited about what just happened. Then we go upstairs to like eat dinner and watch TV, and he's just like, I want to say what happened so bad. Like I want.
I have a really bad DM habit of sometimes at the end of sessions, I'm like, all right, I have to tell you what I was going to do if you assholes hadn't done that. This was going to be, you know, and like, I know, I try not to, because like you don't want to like fully reveal the illusion behind the curtain, but like there are definitely things that, you know, especially when it's like there's no chance of that happening now. I just want to let you know.
Yeah.
Once it's off the table, it is funny. But I think it is fun for the players as well. Like it doesn't. I get the whole like keeping the magic and everything, but we still don't know what happens next. And it's just about, you know, oh, did we really mess you up that bad? Like, is that really what would have happened? And that's really exciting as well.
Yeah. Like, hey, Samaj, if you're here in the chat, that warehouse you guys burned down in Waterdeep had 1,000 gold worth of silver bars that you didn't check.
Oh no!
I'm so sorry.
That sounds like they deserve that.
Book. I tried to get you guys there, but
that's so funny.
Amazing.
Unlucky.
We have
instead of looting this warehouse, let's burn it down.
Man.
Amazing. Yes. Hashtag spoilers to everybody.
Yeah. Now everyone else who plays Waterdeep from this point on is not going to burn any warehouses down.
Free warehouse.
Everywhere else.
To circle back around, I think most of my resources would just be like my own time that I've spent learning. So like I used to use a bunch of NPC name generators or like treasure loot generators, and now I just know a lot of it or know what I would want to plug in there. So I just make my own list of 10 NPCs they might run into, 10 shops they can find, like that kind of thing, and then I pull randomly where they are.
Nice.
That's smart.
That makes sense.
Yeah, Joe, what's your secret tool?
My secret tool?
Yeah, what's the thing that like your back pocket, the thing you keep in your back pocket?
It's you, bud.
Aww.
Is that Relic is a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
That's the secret, Cap.
Yeah, no, it's you and Samaj and the other DMs just bouncing stuff off you guys, even if I can't be specific.
I realized I know you had said that. I hadn't drawn the dots, connected the dots there. So yeah.
Were you we talked about like the general like where we get our resources from, maps and things like that. How do you guys handle that challenge, especially if it's online and stuff like that?
Yeah, Joe, how do you handle maps?
We don't. We did all theater of the mind stuff for like the first year. Honestly, I only started messing with maps recently and in a very limited capacity. The last time, the first time I tried to use a map, I screen shared with it was basically MS Paint, and I was just like moving little guys around because I can't figure out Roll20 for the life of me.
It's the stupidest. Oh my gosh.
Well, so Nick's learning it right now, and he's gonna share all that knowledge with me, obviously. But the last thing we did that was super lo-fi and worked really well, which I had seen someone online do this, and I wish I could properly accredit them for it. But just making a Google slide and sharing edit access with everyone, so like I can lock the background in and just put a simple grid in there and then basically put tokens in. And since everyone has edit access, they can just move their little guys around, and we can still handle the rolling and all of that outside, like not have any of that integration and keep it.
Wait, Joe,
Cool.
you have described Roll20 though. That is what you do.
It's a very lo-fi
Honestly,
Roll20 though. It's a Roll20 I can wrap my head around, which is
It's a Roll10.
Amazing.
Yeah. I will say, I know I'm not a real DM because I don't have a podcast, but my
you
at
totally
home,
are.
I super rely on DM's Guild. I love supporting people on there. That's where I've got I probably have 15 to 20 supplements related to Waterdeep. Like I didn't necessarily buy each and every one. Some of them came in a bundle. But things like 100 random city encounters with here's basically a 2 to 4 sentence description with these are the stats you would use for the enemies and things like that. I mean, I think that one day I hope that I'll have enough time and dedication to get something up on DM's Guild, but I think it's just such a cool resource, and that is my favorite thing about 5th edition. I know it existed in different forms prior to 5e, and I'm not sure if Pathfinder they're up on DM's Guild too, I think, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. I just think it's such a cool way to get people, my wife's a teacher, and when I told her about DM's Guild, she's like, oh yeah, it's like teachers pay teachers. And there's a bunch of teachers that just share their resources online, and you buy them for
That's
$1,
really
$2, $5. And it's a cool way. I think I love Wizards of the Coast and I love Curse, but rather than, supporting these multi-million-dollar companies, you're, supporting usually smaller people like us.
A little more local
creative
kind of thing.
minds. That's really awesome.
Yes.
Oh no, we lost Joe's
Did we
video.
lose Joe?
Oh no.
Oh no, I switched you guys again.
Joe is goofy.
Joe,
I'm still here.
Okay. Just dealing with those damn technical
I know that
difficulties.
Zoom and Discord have both been dealing with a lot of issues like this because of the strain.
Yeah, just in general.
No, I just had to pop my hoodie off. It's getting hot in here.
Yeah, I turned my AC off, so if I look like I'm shiny, it's because I am. I'm sweating like a pig.
So shiny.
It's that natural glow. You're beautiful.
Thank you.
And then the other tool I kind of already referenced this, but props. I love props in D&D. I love it. Like coins or healing potions. I've got some right here that I love to put these out on the table and have people. I just think it's obviously D&D is nerdy enough, Pathfinder, on its own, but I just I can't help but make it more so with props. It's one of my favorite things to do.
That's something that we feel that we miss out being online, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say the same thing. Yeah, we decided way back in Storm Kings, we used to do Roll20, we used to do all the cool maps and stuff, but then one day we were just if we're gonna do this on the podcast, instead of just saying oh, I moved there, I moved this guy over here, we're we gotta practice doing it all theater of the mind. And I feel we miss out on so much all the cool minis, the cool dungeon tiles, all the 3D dungeon stuff,
right.
all the props and stuff. I feel
and one thing that I do feel we sometimes miss out on in theater of the mind versus having a grid is a little bit more the tactical sort of plays you can make, because when you're trying to keep track of everything and keep track of what you want to do all in your head, sometimes there's those blank spots. And what is it, when we were fighting the oozes, and we edited it just a little bit because there was a 20-minute breakdown of okay, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
What's on the battlefield? Where is it? And we were trying to describe everything. And we all came up with a different number of enemies that were still remaining.
Yeah.
And then David was okay, wait, hold on. This is how many there are. Forget everything. This is what we're looking at.
Yeah. What was funny in that moment is I was all right, guys, stop it. I'm the DM. This is the way it is. And Christian's I've been taking notes and that's actually wrong. I was oh, damn it. I'm sorry.
That's any episode we have where combat lasts more than one episode. There's 12 guys at the end of the last episode. Now it's 5. I don't fucking know.
Yeah. Whatever.
We had a particularly chaotic episode where Joe, for some insane reason, had us fighting zombies that their parts could fall off of them and then get their own separate actions. So we were okay. Zombie 1, his arm is over here, but zombie 2's head is. It was absolutely insane.
We're dealing
Joe,
with
you
the
madman.
Roll20 theater of the mind versus like describing what you're doing, but we've just like we've talked about, we've used Roll20 for so long and we're all really comfortable with it, and he
Mhm.
makes really awesome maps on Incarnate that we
Hell
want to
yeah.
utilize. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
I
That's
am
Yeah.
jealous of your ability because I tried to use Incarnate and I was like, oh, I'm
It's a
not
learning
artistic
curve
at
switching
all.
to like getting your head to switch into isometric
Oh,
view when
yeah.
you can't actually like turn stuff a certain way when you really
Yeah.
want to.
I
Yeah.
learned Photoshop, and that Incarnate is like a mystery to me.
Yeah, I've just been using. So I started using Roll20 for the first time a month ago, and I strictly my Google search history was just like 80 different versions of like free Roll20 maps, Roll20
Yeah.
maps, free like all, because there's so many good ones out there. Yeah, I couldn't even. I tried doing a map once, and it was disastrous.
Yeah. Kind of circling back to what you guys were saying about going theater of the mind and everything. I actually tagged my players today, like right before this podcast, and we are going to very soon attempt taking the grid off of Roll20 and having that just be kind of a theater of the mind, but there's a map there. Like,
Like a
okay, that's
reference
about a
point
move
kind of
action,
thing.
ready, go. Like,
Yeah,
Less
I know that
measuring, more using your terrain and
yeah,
there's
describing.
like I move behind
Very
this
cool.
tree, not I
yeah.
move up 10 feet. Like,
There's a I
Yeah.
don't remember the name of the system, but there's a game that relies on this the it's like zones. So there's like melee, mid, ranged, and then like
Yep.
That
basically,
makes
and so you
sense.
can only be in one
Yeah.
of 4 zones. And the
Yeah.
DM's job is to describe like a few bullet points for each of the areas on the map. And so yeah, I can't, the name's escaping me now, but it's a cool way.
a lot of narrative games do that. There's Fate and Scion both use
I was gonna
zones.
say that sounds like Fate.
might be it. Yeah.
Yeah, Fate's a lot bigger than Scion, so it's probably that one. But they both, a lot of like narrative based games will use zones like that, which I think is really good.
So Goovy, I know you're not there anymore by camera, but are you still here?
I am still here.
Okay.
Don't worry.
You
The
and Joe
camera-
are just too handsome for the internet.
It's like, oh man, these two handsome guys. Oh, hello, Goovy. What's up?
That's what it took. That's what it took to bring it back, baby.
That's hilarious.
Guess I got to turn mine off.
Yeah.
You guys, the handsome meters on this stream are going off the charts. One of you needs to just get
They
out
are.
of here.
I
need
do
to
have
add
to say real
that
quick,
part to the overlay. The handsome.
not that the number of people watching now isn't impressive, but I looked down and I saw 10,991 for a moment, and I almost shit myself. I didn't realize that was the total views.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like,
I was
holy!
like, what number were you looking at? Because I want that.
I had a similar thought. I was like, oh shit, I'm making a fool of myself right now.
Oh, wow.
But-
I'm like, I held my baby up. CPS is gonna be here. Like,
Baby
Witches of the
expensive.
Coast has been called for that previous
Yeah,
comment.
yeah.
But kind of to circle back a little bit. Speaking of props, I made this for Andy a while back. We never have used it once in the campaign, but like the first episode that we recorded, Arius has a scrap of leather with this design on it.
That's awesome.
That is
The
amazing.
symbol of Neth
Yeah.
for those
Yeah.
of you.
It's funny you mentioned that. I mean, I guess I've got a prop here too. Like,
Oh
I
my
don't even know
God.
how it got here, but I made
Go for
this
it.
for Joe's character in our
Oh,
Waterdeep game.
That's so
shit.
cool.
Hey, there's me.
So 5,000 gold
Oh, nice.
pieces. All right, I'm looking
5,000
for you now.
gold.
I
And,
messed up bad.
And
I messed up
Joe actually made the artwork for this character. And my favorite thing about this, the way we revealed it, I was doing the big bad evil guy. He was giving a speech in town, like in Waterdeep, in front of these
Mhm.
made up floating orbs that I've essentially coined as basically fantasy cameras. And he like
fantasy
very
camera.
dramatically
Yeah.
at the end held that up, and we were in our living room, and Joe was just like, "Oh, it was so cool to see that look on his face, because I was like, "Hey Joe, can you send me that art file you made for 7? I just need it for something real quick."
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
I feel like I do kind of miss that because we haven't really played an off-air game since we started the podcast, and like there is something when you're playing offline, off air, whatever, where like you can just like relax and just do whatever the hell you want and have those moments at the table that like
Yeah.
you can't. I mean, you can kind of have them like over online, but yeah, that's super cool, Nick. That's
Actually, I have a prop here too. So the name of our show is Know Your Role. Obviously, play on words, ROLE, ROLL, which is the catchphrase of my good
Oh,
friend
shit.
Dwayne Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every
I
NPC
have
on our
him
show
here.
is The Rock.
They all look
Well,
like him.
There's
Nice.
a small bit of spoilers for anyone who is not quite caught up on From Afar yet, and that's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
That's it. Being very, very.
We actually get
secretive.
Dwayne the Rock Johnson on
Yeah.
our podcast.
I met him in LA once, and he's like, "Dude, do you play D&D?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "So do I." And I was
Yeah.
like, "All right, here we go."
Wow.
Can I just
Not
say
true. Not true.
there was another D&D live stream in one of the other discords I'm in, and they just very casually shared, we just released our next episode of D&D. We're playing with Dominic Monaghan, who I'm sure
What?
everyone in the stream knows played Meriadoc Brandybuck in
Yes.
Lord of the Rings. And I was like, oh man, let me go check these guys out. They must have like thousands of followers. And I think they had like 250 or 300. And I asked them, I was like, how did you guys connect with him? And they were like, oh, we just messaged him on Instagram and asked if he wanted to play D&D. And I
Wow.
ran out of my house and ran around the house like screaming.
What?
Like, why didn't I DM Dominic Monaghan to join us?
Oh my gosh.
Lesson learned.
well,
Everybody on Instagram, open it up right now and start messaging.
Yeah, I'm about to start
Hurry up,
messaging
spam anyone
everybody.
famous.
I'm holding out for Elijah.
Yeah.
There you go. Oh man, that's too good.
Sorry, I took us off on a tangent.
No,
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 that's
that was a great.
That was a
tip.
great tangent.
Yes.
I should
Worth it.
I should have to say it's Helpful Goat Gaming is the name of the group. So I don't
Okay.
just want to
Okay.
Shout out.
Helpful
tell that
Goat
story
Gaming.
and not share them.
Yeah, well done. I'm gonna go follow them right now.
There you go.
Helpful Goat Gaming.
Shout
What
out.
was the question you asked a second ago, Waffles?
I
don't
think we
remember.
started with the tools for DMs, but somehow we ended up there.
Talking about
That's
Dominic.
the best way to go about it. It's what I wanted
From-
from this. I wanted
From
to.
DM tools to Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
That sounds like the name of
Every
a
DM's
podcast.
best
Everything comes
tool.
back
Yeah.
to Dwayne. Everything.
Yeah.
He is just such a delight, though. Like
Oh yeah.
Really.
everything he does, and is in. I'm just like, man,
I literally
so
can't
nice.
imagine how amazing he would be at D&D. It would be incredible.
he would be incredible. I feel like I follow him on Instagram, and like he's always posting photos, or he's like working out and stuff. But then he's like hanging out with his like kids, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
what? How are you so perfect?
You know that like yeah that phrase about like whether a president is electable or not. Like he looks like the guy I'd like to like have a beer with. I
Absolutely.
like think about people like I'd like to play D&D with that person.
Mhm.
That's
Yes.
your like scale.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So before this is all over, in the
Yes.
next however many years, somebody on this stream has to get Dwayne the Rock Johnson to play with one of us or all of
Done.
us. I don't care.
Done.
Let's do it.
Done.
All right.
Easy.
That's the way to
We
do it.
committed.
Easy.
I mean, we are called Know Your Role. I mean, I think it's
If anybody, it would be y'all's.
he's
So-
probably going to actually
True.
be like, "No, I won't join. Also, I'm suing you."
Oh
Goovy, I think The Rock is maybe with you in the room. Can I speak with him, please? Is he with you?
Oh yeah, he's actually right here. Sorry, my camera's not working.
no!
What's that?
If he could just speak into the mic a little bit and say a couple of his famous catchphrases, that would be enough to prove to us that he's here.
Do you smell what I'm cooking?
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
perfect. All right.
Oh, he's got to go. He actually has a plane to catch. Sorry, guys.
How long do you think it would take for
Understandable.
someone to make a joke in his game about him rolling perception to see if
see what they're cooking,
see what they're cooking?
or it'd be a smell based perception check.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he would be a
smell.
blood hunter.
Yeah,
Of course, of
obviously.
course.
Yeah.
For sure.
Did we all? Hey, I know we didn't do this at the start of the show. Can we do like a quick shout out of like who the other people on our show are?
Yeah.
Yeah,
let's
for
do
sure.
it, for sure.
Do it.
Because it
Go
just
for
so
it.
happens I have a very convenient list right here.
Oh. Wait, you need you to scroll it up very
Look at
slowly. There you go.
Look at
Okay,
that.
I
Yeah.
can't stand up
It's
any
like-
further. I'm not wearing
Roll.
pants.
Who does?
So we've got Gorlax, who is our Goliath blood hunter, played by Marvin, who is the Clown Prince on Twitter. And then we've got Jeff, who is played by Beans, who's Young Hachi on Twitter. And then Neko is played by Jasmine, who is Snorientation on Twitter.
I believe so.
That sounded
Snow
Uh,
leopard or slow neopard. I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Slow
and-
nepper.
Slow
And
neppered.
I love
Of
it.
course, Joe, who did not want to be on this shirt. I want to shame him in front of all of you. He did not want to be on this shirt when I was ordering it. He was like,
Rip.
"Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense." And like, I adamantly refused.
Represent.
I'm not a
In the-
character.
Joe,
Yes,
in
you're
the-
all the characters but us.
in-
I'm behind that, Joe.
in
Thank
the From Afar Discord, as soon as Nick was like, "Hey, check this out, we made these shirts," like 15 people were like, "We want that shirt," and so we all bought Know Your Role shirts.
Yeah, I should
Nice.
say they're
Thank
not like,
you.
we don't have like a real merch store up. I would love to get one eventually. These were just ordered through like a shirt company. And yeah, hopefully, yeah, it would be great if we could eventually get to that. Are you guys, do either Waffles or From Afar, do you guys ever plan on doing any kind of merch thing or?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
We're
it's
just
actually-
yeah, go for it. Sorry.
Go ahead, David. All you.
Oh, it's all me. Oh, dang. Pressure's on. No, yeah, obviously we want to try and do stuff. It's just, I don't know, for me personally, it's just kind of weird being like, we're doing this for fun, and then like, here's money aspects to it. But I also understand
Yeah.
like that. Oh, hell yeah, Goof.
There it is.
There you go.
Hey.
You literally just kissed yourself. But yeah,
Somehow
so
that fixed it. Putting the virtual background made my camera work.
love it. But actually, Patrick, who is Ptolemaic, we are working on a few designs and a few extra things, but it's probably going to be like what you guys had, just like very small print, and then
Small runs, yeah.
Yeah, small
Yeah.
runs. Stuff.
We've actually gotten a couple quotes for just like the From Afar logo, like on like the front or back of a shirt. And we're looking into making a small order soon.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Check
Yeah,
it out.
Just opened up, like, not like live yet, but I just opened up a store for us, and I'm working on the designs and stuff for it because that's my
where
thing.
could one find this store? If
Where might that be findable?
Yeah.
It's not live yet.
Okay, well, I'm going to leave this tab on my Windows or my computer open until you are ready, and I'll just put it on there.
I think it is
So.
actually there's like the sticker available right
Oh
now.
yeah, just the sticker.
Just the
I think
sticker
right now.
but it's on what is it, Society 6. Waffles Maple Syrup on Society 6.
That's
But
awesome.
Ooh.
we'll get
To your
We're
point- oh, go ahead.
Yeah, we're big dreamers, so we do everything kind of slow. So
Hell yeah.
I have a Patreon ready to roll out that we basically swore that we're not going to roll out until after COVID's over.
Yeah.
Probably a good
We don't
call.
like
Makes sense.
we say every stream we're like, don't sub to us. COVID sucks. Just
Mhm.
go tell a friend. You know.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
honestly is the best way to help. We don't need the subs. We want you guys to tell your friends. That's how you get the word.
Yeah.
out.
100%.
And then I'm about to get into dice making. So
Nice. We were just talking about that in
Ooh.
the
That's awesome.
From Afar Discord. I think we were talking about dice.
Yeah,
making.
someone just brought that up.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've always wanted to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So actually in my job out of like podcasting and everything, I work with any and every kind of epoxy and polyaspartic resin. So I feel like I
Oh,
have a
wow.
leg up.
Perfect.
I would absolutely say you do have a leg up.
Yeah.
I said I'll paint the minis and I'll paint these
Exactly.
numbers and he'll make the dice and we're perfect. There we go.
Hey,
Yeah,
let
that's
us know when those go
Dang.
for sale. I will absolutely jump in
Yeah,
on that.
that's
And
actually
here in my
how-
day job, I just make drinks. I can't turn that into dice.
I mean,
You
I'll
could if
switch
you
with you
wanted to.
any day.
I don't know, man. Could you make dice that can get you drunk if you put them in your mouth? Is that
yes.
a thing?
It's
Do I have
called
something?
ice
TM?
molds and you just ice.
That's exactly what
True.
I was going to say. Yep.
Okay, there we go. All right.
I would
Yeah.
get in on that for sure.
Yeah.
There you go.
I don't want to get too far past it. The shout outs for the other
Yeah,
people
oh,
on the other
Oh yeah,
shows.
yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah,
We're good at tangents.
I totally forgot about that.
David, if you'd like to shout out the other boys.
Oh, yeah. So you can find Goodval, who is just down below me, or where are you?
yeah,
in this?
yeah, he's right below.
You're right below me. At Goodval Talks on Twitter. Andy, who plays Arius Onos on the Hobgoblin Samurai on From Afar. You can find him at Glitaro. He still has that high school situation.
He's had
going
that
on.
handle for a long time.
Yeah.
What is that a reference to? Is that
It's like a amalgamation of like a weird way to say guitar and like happy, and it's like this. It's just kind of, we'll have to ask him. Maybe we'll do it on a podcast one of these days.
okay?
So yeah, you can find Andy, who plays Arius Onos, the Hobgoblin Samurai, at Glitaro. You can find Goodval, who plays Seacart Nozagar, the
Human paladin.
Human Conquest Paladin.
So-
I am
so basic.
sorry. Yeah, the Human Conquest Paladin at Goodval Talks, and you can find Christian, who plays Kippa Willowwind, the Halfling Glamour Bard, at
Yeah.
Pokey Spinella on
Right.
Twitter.
Waffles,
Yeah, a
you're
couple
up.
of them were in here in chat earlier. I saw Christian was in there earlier.
Oh, is this? Oh, that's cute. Hey, Christian, if you're still here, I don't know if he still is.
I think he had to leave, but yeah, he was here.
We shouted her out earlier, Rin or Moist Bones.
Oh, absolutely.
Privately
Oh.
messaged me saying, "Stop breaking your damn camera." So I'll work on that one for everybody.
Yeah.
Nice.
I feel like between both Know Your Role and From Afar, both Nox, Batty, and Rin definitely deserve a shout out as well, because they've done so much for both of our dang things that we're doing.
Yeah. If
So,
I didn't,
sure.
I told Rin this, if I didn't have a very recently born daughter, I would have had the fan art she made of Know Your Role as the Hobbits as my phone background. But in this
Newborn
case,
daughter.
it's the one thing that might supersede a Lord of the Rings themed fan art of my D&D group.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
But what about you, Waffles and Syrup?
All right. So we rolled 2 campaigns, so this might be a little long-winded. I'll see if I
Go
can
for it.
remember all of them. We have, and a lot of them aren't on Twitter, so at least I don't have to go through that. We have Carrick, who plays Scrag, a goblin alchemist in the Extinction Curse, and his last character in Time Has Passed, even though we're about to change over,
As a
was
reminder, we jump back as different characters a lot, so that's gonna also complicate.
Yeah. So his
Oh,
last character
no.
in Time Has Passed was Jasper, I think elf sorcerer. We have Varso, who plays Mikael. He constantly switches classes every time, but keeps the same name. His last character was don't remember the race, but he was a barbarian. We have Syrup, who plays as Spring Breeze Meadow,
Ooh.
and that is a Leshy in Extinction Curse.
Which is
And
like a
then
little vine thing.
Yep. And then she plays as Tanagal, a green skin human monk.
There's a glitch in the Matrix. Just
Yep.
Travel didn't work properly.
No, it was great. It actually got us into a lot of trouble at the last place we went down. They were like,
it's true.
Oh well. Watch to find out.
Tune in and find out.
Tune in.
Love it.
Nice
we have
plug.
Moss, who plays Thovis, a dwarven barbarian in Extinction Curse, and he plays what was his last name's character? Baldrin, a dwarf fighter, and Time Has Passed. We have Seth, who plays Cole in Extinction Curse. Goodness gracious, this is getting winded.
Oh,
He is a he
Shout 'em
is a
all out.
warlock in Extinction Curse, and then he plays what's his other 4-letter name?
Leon.
In the other one? Leon. He plays Leon, who is a cleric of Sarenrae.
Our joke is he always plays 4-letter names, so it's like Seth, Leon, Cole, and I never remember them anymore.
so gross.
It's
and
funny.
then we have Odalisa, we have actually her name's what's her name?
Sydney?
Sydney. I call it. Sorry, she's got so many different names. Sydney, who is Moss's girlfriend, and she plays Odalisa, a elven rogue in our Extinction Curse.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I
That sounds
didn't
awesome.
know that Sarenrae was an actual canon god from Pathfinder. My first introduction to Sarenrae was through Critical Role.
Yes.
So in season 1. So when you just mentioned that, I literally turned and I like Googled, and I didn't know that. It's like today I learned. I just had always assumed it was like straight out of Matt Mercer's head. So that's cool.
Critical Role started with Pathfinder, so they just translated their gods over.
Yeah.
Yes. A lot of their custom like made gods and domains. I think like 80% of them are from Pathfinder, and then he throws in 1 or 2.
I was wondering that because I haven't listened to all of Critical Role, but like the part I've listened to, I think Vex has like the returning daggers that he throws.
Yep.
And I was like, shit, that's a really cool item. I'm pretty sure that's only a Pathfinder. maybe Matt just like brought it over, but like
yeah, no, he did. He also brought over the Boots of Haste, which I mean, I'm getting really nerdy in the paint here, but like
that's all right.
They broke 5e. Like they weren't meant to exist in 5e. So like Vex can do impossible stupid things because Matt was like, oh, yeah, sure, you can bring that over here. And there was just like something different about him that he's talked about it later on. He's like, he had them for too long for me to like take them away.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, both Vex and Vax were also just like such great characters that like it's hard to be like, don't do that really cool thing that you wanted to do. Like
that's kind of like how I liked in the Adventure Zone, to jump to another great D&D show, when Griffin would make custom magic items for the group or allow people in the community to, and they would break
man.
them. So like
Yeah.
this whole trap, like portable jacuzzi or the pocket spa. I can't
Pocket
remember.
spa.
Pocket
Oh my
spa.
gosh, it's so
And they
good.
immediately used it to like kidnap someone. And he was like, oh God, that's not, it was supposed to be
Yeah.
like a short rest, but he's like, yeah, sure. You
I
can
think
put someone in the pocket spa.
I think
I'm really sad the pocket spa is not called the Spocket.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Missed opportunity.
Missed
Dang.
opportunity for
Dang,
sure.
Let them
Griffin,
know. They
where
might
you
go back
at?
and edit that.
That was always one of my favorite parts of the Adventure Zone, was like how interactive Griffin was with the community. Like he would like make elevators, for example, and people were like, there's no elevators in D&D, and he's like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
here's exactly why it is. Or like with the
Yeah.
items, like he, like people are like, that's too broken, but then he still find a way to like
Yeah.
make it work in the story. Very, very cool.
I would
Yeah.
like to point out, as I've been listening to From Afar, and I promise I'm not just trying to like, I know I've talked about From Afar a lot tonight, but I have unfortunately not had the opportunity to listen through anything other than your most recent episode, Waffles. But as I've
That's
been
all
listening to From Afar, I keep finding all these parallels. And like one of
Yeah.
the weirdest ones was like in almost the exact same episode, both of our parties go to a major city. For us, it's Baldur's Gate. For them, it's Neverwinter.
Mhm.
Meet a guy who takes them to an underground base via an elevator. It was so weird when I started listening to it. Like it's the parallels, but yeah, the elevator made me think of that.
I think y'all's guide though was just a much better NPC than the one that I had. Like when you busted out that voice, Joe, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing
I was
I've
so
ever
excited to do that guy, and because like you hear me say it in the first episode, because we recorded those first 3 all in one sitting. I was like getting really self-conscious about my inability to do accents. Because we're in Virginia, and so my only accent I could do was variations of Virginia.
Alabama boy over here.
Alabama.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So like I was like practicing German voices like in my car for like a week leading up to, maybe probably longer than that, for a week leading up to busting that character out. And he's probably one of my favorite NPCs because it's just so fun to do. He's so silly.
You want to give us a little snippet, maybe a little line in his voice?
Oh, I don't know if I can dust it off. Oh boy.
Oh no.
What's something Engelbert would say?
Engelbert, oh my gosh.
Something
Something
about
your
GeoCities.
Or your
oh yeah, I believe in the future GeoCities will become very popular.
Yes.
Now,
Amazing.
Joe,
So
as someone who does also practice a lot of NPC and character voices in the car, does it make you feel as crazy as it makes me when you're just sitting there like saying lines to yourself, listening to clips, and then just trying to recreate it?
I try not to get too in my own head. I just let the crazy flow through me. I just hope nobody can see me while I'm doing it.
I didn't realize how bad it was until I got into the car one day with a passenger, and like the clip I had been listening to get I was going to play a Loxodon, so I was trying to get like a nice little African sort of accent down, and they're like, why are you just listening to people just talking about nothing? And I was like, I don't know how to
I can
put this for
explain,
you.
I
I'm
promise.
working on my imagination.
This is imagination practice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I spent way too much time trying to perfect a robotic Scottish accent for Relic, and it like the sound waves around me died as I tried this, and eventually I just was like, you know what, like, you know what's maybe funnier than like me doing an awful dwarvish robots like Scottish voice is just like me playing a guy who like is basically like if C3PO met is it HK-47, the killer assassin robot from KOTOR, who's like, I basically was like, I'm gonna take a super evil bounty hunting robot and then combine him with like a hyper polite guy who says things like inquiry and things like that, and it was so much easier and less stress on me because I do not do accents. Basically, the only one I do is like Russian, and it's really bad. So I was like, he's either going to be a Russian robot or.
I can do accents. I can't maintain the same accent for very long. So.
Ironically, I love accents, and I was so excited. I was going to be a player character, and I was like overthinking Sieghart's voice so long. And in our session 0, I literally was like,
The dog was whining.
I'm just gonna have a deep voice,
okay.
I guess. I don't know. This like
Nah,
I'm
no,
overthinking this.
Your C card
Sorry,
voice is very
that
funny.
was Neko that just popped in there in the back.
That's a human name.
Sup,
It's
Neko?
not my
Jazz-
human name.
It was
Is that my
Jasmine.
human name? Amazing.
Hi, Jasmine. Yeah, accents are. It's one of those things that like it's super fun, and it's like what we learned in like improv. Like if anything, like if you just like attack it and just like no matter what happens, like your players and everyone will just be like, yeah, it was really fun. But
Yeah.
like
Yep.
it's funny how like we're like there's so much pressure of like, oh, you got to have this really cool accent and this really cool voice for this character, but half the time it's like you say one word and then you're like, I can no longer speak in this accent.
That happened
There's
to
no
me.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also
That's
hard,
me.
like with most of our shows. I mean, I don't know how some people go for a little bit more serious tone, but like, yeah, I mean, Know Your Role, we're like absolutely like nonstop. We would never take a character that Joe comes up with seriously for more than 30 seconds at a time.
Yeah.
It could be the most well put, well crafted name and like accent. And eventually someone will like make a dick joke and he's just like, all right, like, but I think what I give props Joe all the time. Like, I hate this phrase. I hate the phrase leaning in. It's such like a business like synergy, but like Joe does lean into his accent and like
Mhm.
in a way that I am still to this day not willing to do at like my own private table. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that Joe.
Your
Like
accents are very good.
we have a whole
thank
episode
you.
where Joe basically speaks like a New Zealander.
Yeah. No, you killed that
That's
episode.
difficult.
That was
Thank
such
you. I
a fun
practiced that
episode.
one
too.
for a long time too.
Yeah.
It's so good. I love
Yeah.
it.
Like my hit.
There you go.
I mean, yeah, some definitely like have that come easier than others, but that's okay either way, in my opinion. But like you talked about with NPCs, like in the end, I think doesn't matter how much effort Waffles puts into his NPCs, the ones that we remember the most are the shrug nod guards
Yeah.
that
Man, oh
just
man.
took off.
want to speak about not taking NPCs seriously. These guys get like, so first of all, real quick story. My accents suck. I have a slightly higher pitched girl voice and then an Alabama accent guy voice. That's about it.
Yeah, that's all you need,
but-
honestly. That's all you need.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah.
But these guys get taken into slavery, or basically like 3 of them, because they're in a continent that didn't like half races. And they knew this going in. Some of them still loaded in as half races. So they get taken into this town and they're like, all right, put them with the slaves. That's fine. And they're like, okay, that's fine. We can get out of this. But it's a decently serious moment until I make the mistake to say that the first person at them just kind of shrugs and gives them a nod to reply. And then I said the same thing 5 minutes later. And they're like, oh, so they're all shrug nod guards. Gotcha.
Shrug nod guards.
From then on, all his NPCs just shrug and nod. That is.
Yep. we have the quartet of shrug nod guards in
we have-
the
That's
background.
hilarious.
One NPC whose voice was so horrifying that Joe immediately killed the character in canon. Just like,
Yeah.
like
I think I think Beans brought it up in the chat earlier. The guy in the Religio Mart.
oh, is
that was
Beans in
that was a
here?
funny
I didn't see
moment.
him in here.
Yeah, he's in here.
Hi, Beans.
Hey, Beans. Yeah, no, I mean, literally, Joe was doing it, and he was just like, I think someone asked to go talk to that guy again. He's like, yeah, he died.
Yeah.
Straight up, he's
Just,
dead.
yeah, man.
And Andy,
Too bad.
Andy, I said Andy because of your name on your thing, David.
No, but as we found out earlier, that is my actual name.
yeah,
So-
you did a similar scene, not because of a voice, but like there was. I don't want to. Can I say Scuba
Yeah,
Steve?
go-
Can I say
Yeah, go
Scuba
for it.
Steve?
Of course you
Yeah.
I
can.
think so.
I don't know what, I can't remember the exact reason, but I think you just didn't want to continue that conversation. So you're like, yeah, he turns and grabs a cement block and just jumps in the ocean. And he just
Yeah.
like was gone.
That was a pretty fun moment. I'm not gonna lie.
Scuba Steve. We all were dying for so like we had to pause and like pick it back up because that was such. Dave was like, nope, he's gone. He's out of
He's
here.
dead. Well, that was like because there was a moment like he stopped doing it, thankfully. And if he's still on, please don't start this up again. Christian used to just like he would be like, "Oh, we're in a new setting. Who's that guy over there with 3
Yep.
arms?" And I'm just
Yeah.
like, I don't know who the hell is that guy.
He
Like,
did it on the deck of the sea monster multiple times.
Yeah.
Like, who's that guy?
yeah, It's
like,
fun.
he jumps off the ship.
He's dead. That guy's not dead. You're killing my crew members. What the hell is wrong with you?
But
Every
at the
time you
same
look at
time,
them.
we've gotten some of the best NPCs that way,
Yeah.
where it's like, who's that guy? And we have the most amazing shipwrights that like are the
That's
flying
cool.
team of shipwrights.
Yeah.
Joe can speak to this, but there's a character he introduces in one of the latest episodes that broke me. To where like out of character, like he introduced his name, and I just said on mic, I said, no, it's not. That's not his name.
That was old Beanie Weenie.
Literally, I was like already, we were coming into town, and like one of the first NPCs, was a really cool guy named Justice Cromwell, and I was like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, this is awesome, Joe. Who's this guy? Beanie Weenie. It's just like.
So Waffles mentioned the NPC generators earlier. I was like struggling to find something because I had just run out of names. So I just found one, and it had like just like first name, last name, and I was just picking stuff out. And so like Beanie Weenie was one, Squirts Huckleberry was
Squirts
one.
Huckleberry.
I was grabbing the worst shit I could find.
I was running when I was listening to that episode, and you're like, what's his name? And you're like, Squirts Huckleberry, and I had to stop running. I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a great name. It made me. You threw off my 4-minute mile, basically.
Do you have any fun NPC names, Waffles?
Sorry about your exercise, but I'm glad you enjoyed it.
No. Honestly,
No,
I don't have any like really fun ones. What I can say is about our show is the running joke so far is that they can't remember a NPC name.
Not
Like,
a
none
one.
of them.
Just
They're
keep
like
mixing them up. Yeah.
that guy we met 10 minutes ago. Yeah, that
We
that
will
guy.
literally be
Yeah.
having a conversation with them, and I'm like, okay, great. I turn around and I was like, so him, because I just don't. It's pretty bad.
I feel like maybe this is just me though. I feel like that's kind of like real life though. Like I've been in situations where like talking to someone for a long time. They're like, we introduce ourselves, and I'm like, hey, other friends, come over here, let's talk. And this is Steven? No.
My name's Karina.
God.
Yeah. I've done that on the show a couple times where we've been trying to write. We're like, what was that guy's name? And like, we have to like go back to like the notes that Joe puts together for us on D&D Beyond to like, okay, there we go.
That's actually note taking is something that I'm kind of struggling with being online, because we pre-COVID were starting a live group just so that we could have some of that experience, because while this is absolutely amazing, we wanted the props, we wanted you wanted that experience. And I'm new to Minnesota, so I wanted also to kind of like meet people and everything like that, and that was going really well. And I have a notebook and I take my notes, and then I go to the stream, I'm running, I have OBS up, I'm making sure Roll20's up, that my character sheet's not showing over the map the whole time. I'm focused all on that, and then I'm like, how do I take notes? Where do I go with this?
Yeah. I struggle with that. I mean, anyone in our podcast can attest to the clacking of my keyboard in the background.
Oh my God, bud.
So it's gotten better since I got a real mic, but I have cut back on the notes because I have found like it becomes this circle of like, I'm trying to take notes to make sure I remember what Joe said, but then I missed what Joe said.
Yeah.
So then and I've just realized, unless it's like something really hot. So what I've actually defaulted to do is like, I'll put a couple of things together at the end of like when we're done recording, just so I have like, all right, this is what I think was important.
Without those
I've always
notes, though,
attributed that
I don't know NPC names.
It is a painful thing.
Yeah.
I've always just attributed that though, Nick, to Relic as a Warforged. He probably has a keyboard on his body somewhere.
Yeah.
So
it's honestly, seriously, it's one of my favorite running jokes on the show was like, and I came into this with this idea of like Relic was going to be this kind of like serious, like, but straight man, like, he's going to be the guy who like wasn't very good at humor or anything, but ended up becoming to me like one of my, obviously I'm biased, like one of my favorite running jokes is this idea of Relic being a fax machine, because Marvin, without any prompting, just like, because Relic says affirmation a lot, just took out his phone and started playing fax machine noises.
So funny.
Or the old
So
like
funny.
dial up.
Yeah.
And we've done multiple things like where I said something that we just like sounds in the background or whatever. Like if someone's phone, like text message goes off, it's like, oh, Relic's like, oh, excuse me.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Like he burped or something. Like,
Sorry, I cut you.
I like
you
that
off
a
there,
lot,
Waffles.
actually.
You're saying
Oh,
something?
you're good. I was just gonna say, if I could go back, I realized a couple of things I missed and a really funny moment. So we had another player with us, Bree,
Oh.
and she plays Lena, who has basically stayed for our first two arcs and then got retired for reasons, no spoilers. But next arc in, another one of our players, Leon, that we talked about, was like, yeah, and we have to get back to who is she? Huh? Just forgot one of our players.
Oh, no.
Forget NPC names. He forgot a PC player, so that was
Yeah.
great.
No, that's
Oh,
hilarious.
We
no.
have
so
yet to
funny.
let him
Bummer.
live that down.
Or
he
well,
won't.
don't
As it
worry.
should be.
We don't let Beans live down the fact that he fell asleep in the middle of recording one of our episodes, and
Oh,
I still love it because Joe tries to
Episode
do a
2.
really good job of just referring to us as our
Episode 2.
character name. So he's like,
Mhm.
"Yeah, Jeff. What do you do, Jeff? Beans?" And he's like, yeah." And he's like,
That's
I think your
amazing.
quote is, "Hey, bud, did you fall asleep?"
So were you asleep, bud?
Yeah.
And what you didn't hear in that episode is I did edit out some of him snoring leading up to that. So sorry
That's
about
so funny.
justice for young Hachi.
That is
Man, oh,
too
man.
good. Yeah.
we were talking about homebrew stuff earlier, like in terms of elevators and stuff. One of my
Yeah.
favorite things to ask a lot of people that play games is, what is your best/favorite homebrew rule, and what is the worst one you've ever heard or played under?
What do you just say? Nope.
Well, I think the homebrew rule that we've been working a lot with in the podcast recently. Every time Goofy plays, he thinks we should level up, and that's just a hard note for
We
me
would never
every
say
time.
that.
Yeah,
I like to check
Mhm.
at the end of every session or every grand thing we do. I'm just like, man, boys, it really feels like we've leveled up our friendship or our strength.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
No,
Joe,
it's
why don't
always
you
very
talk
funny.
about that? Why don't you talk about how frequently we ask you whether we leveled up?
These guys want to level up every fucking episode. Let me tell
I
you.
know. Oh my gosh.
I'm pretty sure that's consistent because we do the same
Yeah.
thing.
I will
I mean,
say
I get
I
it.
have complete sympathy for Joe because I am terrified to DM a group over like level 10. Like listening to any stream or podcast where like Adventure Zone, Critical Role, like when your characters can be like, yeah, I want to teleport to the Nine Hells. I'm gonna be
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
back. And then you're just
Yeah.
like, what the shit? So like, yeah, I mean, we already break Joe's encounters, so I don't blame him for being like, all right, guys, slow your roll. Like,
Right.
Wait,
That's-
slow your
the-
roll.
The show is Know Your Role.
Yeah, Nick, you
Nick.
said that wrong.
Um,
Okay.
I like, so there's a number of like rule bending. I wouldn't really call them homebrew rules, but as a player, at least, I really hate alignment.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I just throw that out as soon as I create a character. I don't think that's like a good way to like pigeonhole your player's personality. Like even as a paladin, like I play a paladin in Nick's home game. You would think lawful good for that, but like I have made some decisions that were bad, and I think that's way more interesting to do than pigeonhole yourself to alignment. And then I think something I would like to explore a little more. It's been a conversation on TTRPG Twitter lately. It like just popped up again yesterday. It comes up every once in a while. It's like ability scores tied to racial bonuses and stuff like that. Like I
Yeah.
think that should be completely done away with. Like find a new way to rework that.
Yeah.
Because it's just rooted in a lot of old tropes that just don't stand up anymore and don't resonate with the current community. So that's something
Yeah.
I'd like to throw out.
Joe, I just want to chime in. I know that you're not as active on Twitter as I are. You
Yeah.
are you saying that because are you aware of like the firestorm that was going on this week?
The
over
orc
that exact
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, what happened with that?
Just a lot of discussion over the whole. I mean, to Joe's example, the idea of whether any race, orcs, goblins, kobolds, humans, elves, should be inherently tied to racial attributes because it essentially, what you end up with a lot of like cookie cutter characters for one, but then the
Yeah.
other thing is, if you start digging into like the roots of like why this character is this or that, like why can't an orc be as smart as an elf and things like that. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've always told my players, just bring something up to me if you ever want to try it. 99% of the time it's yes.
Mhm.
And to double off of that, I've told my players that like you can make backgrounds in 5e, just make a character. Make sure it's all mathematically correct, but just make one. Like
Yeah.
if you want
Yep.
a 20 intelligence orc, go for it. Like
Yeah.
Those are always a little more exciting to me too. Like where like everyone knows like elven wizard or whatever, like a sneaky like tabaxi, but like if you're like I'm a Goliath, but I'm also the sneakiest person in the world, it's like that's really interesting. How are you gonna like try to like work with that
What's your
in
flavor
games?
for that? Which is
Yeah,
my favorite
exactly.
thing, honestly.
Yeah. That's
Speaking
why
of, if I can piggyback
Go
off that real quick, only because I had a fun idea. I play on one of Carrot's games right now, and I made a class with him called the Slayer. Basically, it's just for flavor. It's kind of like a fighter meets ranger, somewhere in between
Ooh.
there.
A flanger.
Yeah, basically. But I'm a kobold that wields a Goliath's longbow as his bow. And so every time I shoot it, I have to plan it. I can't like move. I can't
That's
move.
amazing.
And my kobold like puts his foot on the bow and pulls backwards to shoot it. Like
that's
Yeah.
awesome.
I
Things
love
like that
that. That's
just
so
make it
cute.
more fun. Like it. Like I some of my roommates back in LA, one in particular is all about like min maxing, and like there's nothing wrong with that. Like that is, if that's the way you want to play, that's go for it. But like if you can build sort of like not handicaps, but like opportunities for you to have to think and like have to like just like work through stuff, like that's always just a little more exciting to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think any time you come up with a flaw for your character, it's such a cool way to like, again, yes, min-maxing and optimization has its own sense of fun. And I think that's kind of what like a session 0 is really good for. Because if you have 3 people who want to play like kind of a more RP or socially based, or even just like they want to be challenged, it might not be as fun for them to have the guy who comes in who's able to get like 20 AC at turn, literally this is Relic. When I made Relic, I reached out to Joe and I was like, hey Joe, so I know you said you were cool with me playing a Warforged, but I have 20 AC at level 1. This was before they errated them in the new run.
Unearthed Arcana.
I was like, Joe, I don't think that's going to be fun for you or for the rest of the party if I'm just this like walking tank. So we came up with this idea of like Relic was found. I mean, without getting too deep into his backstory, he was like found abandoned in the Underdark and was like reawoken by these like pair of dwarven brothers that found him. And so Joe was like, yeah, what if you're just like atrophied or like you're just not up to full capacity?
Yeah.
And we just took like a -2 to my AC because it felt unfun. Like Joe was just never going to hit me.
But a credit to you there is, to both of you, is aside from just changing a stat, you made it story based. You made it something interesting about your character that you can then take and play off of, which is what I love. And about that session 0 thing, like absolutely, I think there are different types. I'm not even gonna say how many because I don't know, 2, 3, however, types of ways to play D&D, let alone any of the other TTRPGs out there. And you want to find a group that fits your play style. And now that it's gotten as popular as it has, it's actually like all the more easy for other people to find that and enjoy it more, which is why it's taking off. I think it's absolutely amazing.
What is it? It's something though that Christian says and like tries to do a lot is like he says his like favorite moments are when Kippa fails a thing and like you have to fail forward now. And like so he will specifically do things where he's like, I don't want Kippa to like look awesome and cool for this moment. I want him to mess up here because that creates more interesting situations. It's like that sort of Superman stigma of like you're super strong, super fast, and indestructible. Where's really the conflict?
I did that with Tanagal. It's pretty early on, so I don't mind like spoiling it necessarily, but like we talked about, we load in as characters, but who she is in the quote unquote future is like a 14-year-old girl who is a kid, and so when you're in a different body, you're Tanagal, she's like an adult, but she still makes childlike decisions sometimes to the chagrin of the entire group, I'm sure, but I have to stay true to like what she is, and it's fun to me. It's fun to be like, do I know what would make sense here? Yes. Does she? No.
Those are my favorite moments where it's like, I don't want to do this.
That kind of
he
goes
doesn't
with
know any better, so he's gonna do this.
It's the good version of, well, that's what my character would do. Because there's the shitty version of that. There's the like, I loot the horde and I don't let anyone see, like that, like very or like
Yeah.
I try and seduce every innkeeper that I run into, because that's like there's that people use that card to a I think
just
you know
be a
definitely
jerk.
yeah to
It's
be a
not a
jerk.
get out of jail free card.
But there's another
Yeah.
version of it that is like, I want to drive the story forward. And that's like what Relic's moment on that train arc was. Like, Nick, was like, oh yeah, we should definitely, like, from a metagaming standpoint, we should get rid of this guy. Like 100%. But I was like,
absolutely.
okay, how fun is that going to be? Like, this train arc is going to be over in like 2 episodes. And, you know, so yeah, you have to find that, like, that balance.
Yeah.
Well, I think it goes to something that we've been talking about a little bit, like behind the scenes on From Afar, is like backstory is like so important, and kind of what Joe was talking about, like alignment is so important. But like we're playing these characters and they're going through these situations, and like that kind of stuff isn't going to stay the same.
Yeah.
Like if you start out as a lawful good paladin
That's
and you
huge.
get like presented with like, all right, you can kill this demon, but if you kill this demon, this person's also going to die, but it'll save this time. Like you get into these like gray areas where like your morality and your what's the word I'm looking for, ethics are like tested, and like people in real life don't come through moments like that and aren't they're changed when they get on the other side of that.
Right,
You know,
right.
it's
And to
such
that,
an important part that we forget about a lot.
I don't, I agree with you, Joe, about like, there's not really a need to say I am chaotic good or something like that necessarily from the start. But
Yeah.
if you want to take that as a sort of template to say,
Mhm.
well, let's see, which box do I fit in right now at level 1 or whenever you start off, and say, okay, well, if let's say they're lawful good, then they might have this type of personality and it helps you build that. Then once you have that solidified, throw away lawful good. It doesn't matter anymore. Now you know who your character is.
Exactly.
What I told her from the beginning, kind of building characters, is I said, one, I hate it completely. Like I hate that whole alignment chart and everything. But two, if you're gonna use it fluidly. Like honestly, you, in my opinion, start your level 1 character off at neutral, decide what decisions they make, and then decide what you are. And then even if you're chaotic evil, not every bad guy, like there's not a bad guy that doesn't make a good decision somewhere.
Yeah, no, this whole idea of like pigeonholing someone into one, like I was a pretty good kid. Like my parent, like when I was a kid, like I really did not get into any trouble. My parents had it like really easy. I was very uncool. I didn't smoke and I didn't drink until college. But I got into a really bad shoplifting phase in like 9th grade. And like that doesn't mean that I was like, oh, I'm chaotic evil. I stole Baldur's Gate 2 from Target.
Give me that bubble gum.
Of course it was Baldur's Gate.
It was. I know all about the shoplifting phase.
I'm a nerd, but I stole nerdy cool things.
I bring that up like it's like one action doesn't define you, and that I think is the dilemma of, I think the lawful the alignment chart is helpful maybe in inspiring like what you tend to veer back to, but it doesn't mean that you don't go, like,
well, kind of what Serp was saying is like it's just a cool jumping off point, because that's like exactly, Nick, like when you're like, I'm a lawful good person, like that's a very stagnant like character. And like once you go through all these things, like people don't want to see someone start out like, I'm good, I'm still good, I'm still good, I'm still right here, I'm still doing this. Like people don't care about that. Like they want to see the good people fall, they want to see the bad people like rise up. They just want to see these like dynamic things like that. I think I'm with you, Joe. Like I think alignment is it's cool, it sounds cool. The word alignment's a cool word, I guess. But like it's an interesting restriction. That might be too hard of a word. It's an interesting caveat to put your character in.
It's an interesting boundary.
It's less about, I think, less about alignment and more about being consistent with your character.
Yeah.
Like if you've been playing, if Relic suddenly like did something in episode 21 where he was like, yeah, I kill that guy, that like something that just didn't make any sense, I think that's why again, it's less of like restrictions and maybe more of a guideline. But like Relic himself, I should point out, does, as part of his like annual yearly upkeep, he does have to be realigned like every year.
That's really? Recalibrated?
Yeah, that's part of his like his annual physical is being realigned.
Super cool.
So I did just put that
that's a cool point.
We got a lot of evil in here. Let's just tick that back on up to good, why don't we?
There's a lot of, I feel like the easiest way, or a lot of times this comes into play when people are playing paladins, and it's like, oh well, you didn't follow your tenets, you didn't follow your your alignment, you're now no longer a paladin. And
Yeah.
like, I think what you just said is so much more interesting. It's like, oh, is that true to your character? Because Goovy did something in the last episode that the last time we recorded that, like, I feel like if another group was handling it, it would have just been like, okay, cool. We got to stop the recording. There's some very hard decisions we have to make right now.
Yeah.
But like, because we all know because me and Goovy have talked a lot about Seacart, and because I feel like we're on like a similar page, we were able to like keep going forward. Because like, oh, that is very out of left field, but also like that's out of left field for a paladin, but not out of left field for Seacart.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And to a point, you know, when you say being true to your character and having these tenets that you focus or go by, there's two parts to it, you know. Good is relative, you know, like you can be a evil character necessarily, but you're doing it for your core purpose, and all you need to figure out is your core purpose, and you know, progress in that direction, because that's your line, that's where you follow, that's where you know, okay, what am I doing in a certain situation. It's how you help make your decisions. And then the other part of it is I completely blank. Never mind that.
You know, my favorite part of that, what you just said, was the second part. That was the best part.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, go ahead, David. Sorry.
Just kind of piggybacking off of that, like, I think that also makes even like more interesting and more relatable, like evil people. When it's like, if you have a guy that's like, I'm just evil, it's like, okay, cool. I'm gonna shoot you. You're dead. Cool. Good job.
Right.
But if it's like, I am doing these evil things, but like, I don't think they're evil. And in my world, I'm actually moving my situation to like a better place, or I'm saving. I'm being evil for my grandma to get her this surgery that she needs. Like, it's like
it's very untrue to like reality. For anyone to ever like be evil to be evil. Very rarely does anyone think or intentionally do wrong. Like as a whole.
Absolutely.
Everyone typically thinks they're doing the right thing.
I want.
And
well, no, go ahead.
And so like for like your big bad to just be a dick because he's a dick, like that's not true to like reality and like how people interact.
There's more
but if
depth
he's
to
a
it.
dick because his needs counteract what yours are, that's when you start to get those nice moments of like tension and morality questions.
I want Waffles to weigh in on evil characters, actually.
Yes.
Not necessarily in our current campaigns because he's the GM, but when he was playing under Carrick, and who I met him as, he was playing Grizz, the wizard that we talked about earlier, and technically he was evil.
Yeah. So
That's
technically
so cool.
under the alignment chart, he was chaotic evil. But basically, Carrot Grizz, Mr. Nice Guy. Yeah, basically Grizz was he was at the end of the day, he was a by any means necessary kind of guy. And he went into blood magic and summoning demons and making contracts with devils, which puts him into evil, but it was to save his town, you know, like
That's interesting.
Very Warlockian of you.
You know, he had an orphanage.
He had a school, he had an orphanage, but like he spoke to devils at night. So.
Don't we all?
The character that I'm playing in my longest running home game, which is not the one I'm running, but our friend Samaj, who joins us as a guest player in episode 19.
That name was hilarious, by the way. His name.
Oh, confession.
I didn't want to say, but sorry, keep going.
Yeah. Well, so that character, so he's DMing a game of us that was Lost Mines of Phandelver that has evolved into a 70 session long, almost 2 year long campaign. We've been on a bit of a hiatus, but
have you found the mines?
We did. We are in the mines. It took like 60 episodes. But
wow.
In terms of like lawful alignment, I play this, like, I'd say a pretty good guy. He's a little wizard named Felix Fizzlebolt, who like is, he's kind of like a typical, like smart, like kind of aloof, little gnome guy. But never really did anything in the game, I think, that would make you think he was anything other than like chaotic good, maybe like neutral good. But like episode 50 or so, was forced by our DM to finally lay bare this like backstory that I'd given Samaj.
Oh, wow.
And admit that this daughter of his, who he had talked about for the last 50 sessions, that was why he did everything, is, oh, his daughter is sick and he's looking for a cure for her. What he didn't tell the group is his daughter was sick and dying, and both his daughter and his wife were like, it's okay, Felix, it's okay, like, to let her go. And he was like, yeah, but it's not. And against both his daughter and his wife's wishes, he cast a scroll of petrification on his daughter.
Ooh.
As like
Oh.
I'm not gonna let her die. I'm gonna fix her. And
that's
his
very
wife,
cool.
his wife like immediately kicked him out and was like, don't ever come back. Like, you're a monster. And it was such a fun moment to like lay that on the group, because all they had ever heard was like, oh yeah, Felix, your daughter is sick. Oh my God, we get it. Like, you're gonna fix her. And he came out and was like, yeah, like, I super petrified her and was against her wishes. And
That's some
I'm a
awesome
horrible,
character.
horrible
That's
Like,
person.
wild.
And if you
yeah.
had been confined by that morality chart, like that sort of thing would have been like, your character wouldn't do that. They're lawful good or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But because you
Yeah.
let that be a fluidity,
Right.
and you can have those
Absolutely.
moments.
And going to like David's point earlier, he believed what he was doing was right. Like, even though his daughter was like, no, it's okay. Like, it's okay for me to go. He was like, nope.
No.
And that was really
Dang.
cool, because when I wrote that character, that was like a year before that reveal. And by the time that reveal happened, my wife was pregnant with our first child. And so it was this like weird,
Oh, wow.
I was in this weird headspace where I was like, holy shit, I can't imagine actually doing this thing that I wrote about. But like, yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Wow, that is
Man.
Man,
crazy. Absolutely.
D&D.
D&D.
So cool.
What a
I love
great
Indeed.
model to,
What
to
a-
TTRPG.
explore yourself.
TTRPG.
TTRPG.
No,
Talks.
it's all good. No, absolutely. That's amazing. And I absolutely loved that conversation, by the way, because to me, like, finding like-minded individuals is super awesome. You know, like, we're all here because we like to tell a good story, and we're using a platform with rolling dice to, in the end, just work together and tell a good story with all of our players. You know, it's from the GM's head to everyone interacting together and throwing things like we talked about for a loop, and it just bouncing the ball back and forth. And I think that's super freaking cool, and I love that we can totally do this and have fun doing it and share it with everybody, because I think that's
Hell yeah.
amazing.
Absolutely.
Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah.
So on that note,
Wow.
yeah, we've been at this for like 2 hours, 15 minutes. It's been
Holy cow, are you-
Yeah, yeah.
Dang.
Whoa. Did not.
Time,
Okay.
time flies when you are having good
So
conversation.
now we're moving into the
Yeah.
hour-long open chat.
Got it. Let's get those questions from chat real
Yes,
quick. All right. Let's go.
After that, we're going to do a 2-hour-long closed chat.
Then we're gonna do a one shot.
Then we're playing an hour of music.
All right. Are you guys
And an
ready to
hour
make
of
characters?
silence.
Yeah,
Let's go.
yeah, we're actually gonna play a game now. So I'm trying to think of a good question to kind of leave you guys off on so that we can sum it all up. We talked about, you know, the homebrews and favorite stuff about this. What do you guys have one in the works? If you guys have something that you want to share, what do you guys have in the works? What are you guys hoping for, moving forward towards? Anything like that you guys want to share?
Absolutely. But I'll
David,
go later.
shall you?
Yeah. So I'm currently working with Nick. You know a little bit about this.
Yeah.
Chris, the dungeon master from Discount Dungeons, which if anyone listening hasn't checked out Discount Dungeons, check them out. They're phenomenal.
Yes, absolutely.
We are working on a high level one shot. I think we're going to put you guys in at 17th level. Get ready for that.
Yeah.
And it's basically just this one crazy huge fight with Discount Dungeons, Know Your Role, From Afar. There might be a few other people who find their way into it. It just there's a lot going on, and it's going to be very, very exciting. So that's the biggest thing that I've been working. And I think, and also Sean O'Donovan and I have been talking a little bit about some one shot stuff
Paradise?
as well. Yeah, from Paradise RPG. Thank you.
Very
So yeah, just trying to get trying to cast that net out and just try to
Yeah.
actually talk with some of these amazing people that we've met
Yeah.
via the interwebs. So
For sure.
Yeah, and then the other half of stuff we're trying to work on is like creating an extra vein of content. So like right now, From Afar podcast is 100% Quest for Atlantis, and we're trying to create a sort of second section where it can be a more fluid sort of people can join in, drop out, have different guests and stuff, like one shot run.
You all are on the list, by the way.
You're all on the list, by the way.
Oh, I've already emailed my application in.
And it's already been yep.
But yeah,
Yep,
just,
there it is,
just
and accepted. Cool,
like a
got it.
sort of second section of content that's not the story of Quest from Atlantis, but can be more of like a live, accessible thing where we can have multiple people on, and it's not so much like we need to find a place in the story that we can work you in, but instead be like, hey, we've got this person, we're playing this today, doing this RPG versus D&D 5e. Like today we're doing a Call of Cthulhu run. Next time we're gonna do Starfinder. Next time we're gonna do Pugmire, like that kind of
Nice.
Pugmire. Yes, sorry. It's a dog-based D&D.
That's amazing.
So good.
I don't want to say anything, Joe. I don't want to commit us to anything. What do you got in the works for us?
I just got to keep editing this fucking show. So I'm gonna keep doing that.
Joe, I feel your pain.
The long trick.
But
Same.
I mean, I have a lot of long-term plans for the show that I can't share for a lot of reasons. But now that the episode's out, we've got a guest character on the show. I've already reached out to some other people about possible guest appearances in the future.
Hell yeah.
So that's something I want to do going forward. So expect to hear some new voices on the show. Speaking of which, check out Tightgeist. That's Samaj's podcast. Who's
what a great name!
It's
It's
a
such a good
hilarious
name.
show.
I'm gonna put their Twitter handle in the chat.
Yeah,
Please
do it.
*3. They're extremely funny. But yeah, all those guys play D&D. Would love to have some of them on.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's all. We're just gonna keep making the show. Keep having fun people on with us.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I will chime in. I haven't necessarily been asking Joe's permission to do this, but I have been feverishly trying to do collaborations with other folks in the TTRPG space. I can't get like into the specifics of when exactly, but I will be playing a guest player on Discount Dungeons in the next couple of months. I may have already sent their DM Chris like a 800 word long backstory, just like idea. This is the thing I was thinking about.
Just off the
throwing
dome.
spaghetti at the wall.
Yeah. So there's that, and Joe and I have, again, I don't want to commit us to anything, but we and the others on Know Your Role, we've talked about wanting to do things in the future. Like we did a little backstory show called The More You Know Your Role, and due to technical limitations on my end, it was a little bit of a streaming fiasco, but we loved it for all 11 people that tuned in. It was really fun, and I think it's something that if I get a better computer or we get a better setup, it's maybe something we could do at like the end of each of Joe's arcs, like these seasons. We've kind of split the show up into seasons, and it might be kind of a cool thing. That way it wouldn't put too much pressure on Joe to edit like an extra episode a week or every other week or anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
But definitely something that we're at least, kicking the ideas around.
Yeah, no.
What about for you guys?
Yeah.
Oh, we're doing a lot. We're trying to keep everything. We're moving this week, so we're packing at the same time as everything else that we have going on. But we talked a little bit about, hopefully in the future, once COVID's over, we'll be running through maybe opening up a merch store and the Patreon.
I love that.
Yeah, the Patreon's gonna be super fun.
Yeah, and kind of getting.
Let us know for sure.
Thank you, and getting all this together. But one of the things we wanted to kind of jumpstart and put way up on the list is what we're doing today. So TTRPG Talks was something that we wanted to. We joined, like you said, we're new. We recently came into the scene. We're loving the Twitter community. That's kind of where we found you guys. It's been so supportive, so awesome, and we were like,
Twitter's
we
amazing.
need a way to just get together, talk with all sorts of different people, share our knowledge, share our stories, share everything. So we wanted to kind of get this going, and we're super grateful for you guys to helping us launch episode 1. I think this was super successful. Great. I mean, thank you guys
this
so
has
much.
been amazing. I think it's an amazing idea. I can't wait to tune in to future ones and see how it
Episode
continues.
2 is Wednesday. We're trying to fit as many as we
Actually,
can.
yeah.
before
Oh
we
wow.
move.
Hell
Yeah.
yeah.
Holy cow.
It's
okay.
not going to be that quick in the future. It's probably going to be once a week, but we
Alright.
are moving.
Yeah,
so
I
we're
mean,
trying to get a couple in 1 week.
I think your 10,991 viewers demand it.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all
More
about this, you
shows,
know?
more shows.
Well, yeah,
Uh,
thank you. It was great. Thank you
Yeah,
for
this
having
was
us on your inaugural episode. And
Yeah.
I'll
Thank you,
be
Ken.
playing in somebody else's one shot Wednesday, but I'll catch the video on demand after.
Sounds
Oh,
good.
absolutely.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that we have in the works that you want to
No, I like to be super transparent. So I'm just gonna say so we mentioned the Patreon, we mentioned the merch store. We already run 2 campaigns. We're kind of at our limit there. Everything else is kind of a monetary limit for us. But
Yeah.
again, COVID, no money, don't do that.
Yeah.
But basically, until one of us is doing this full time, we're kind of at our limit. And then I guess the big goal for me, and I've been super open with it, and all my players know, is we're all remote players. We've known each other for a lot, but the big goal is to one day get us all together.
Oh, that's
That'd
awesome.
be great.
That'll be cool.
I hope you guys stream that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Gotta
you.
see.
I do
That
want to
sounds like a
just
lot of
say
fun.
episode 2 is with basically good and
And roll the roll.
roll the roll.
Roll the
Yep.
roll.
My hair scratches
yeah.
the microphone.
All right.
All right. Yeah, I mean that's it for us, I think.
Wow.
Well, thank you
Thank
so much
you.
for having us on, guys. This was
Yeah, this was
been
so
a
much fun.
blast.
Yeah,
And I did
thanks
not
to-
realize
problem.
we spent almost 3 hours doing
Thank
this.
you.
So that's great.
Yeah.
The crazy
Everybody
thing
in
about almost
chat.
spending 3 hours is I don't think we got through everything. So
Yeah.
No,
I'm
we
sure
didn't.
we'll see you guys again. Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
I'd love to be on again.
Yeah,
But yeah, I want to
anytime you
thank
guys.
everyone in chat who joined and was being
Yes.
like super involved
Yes.
and
Thank you, chat.
Yeah, it's
Thank you,
awesome.
chat. Thank
I
you.
think I'm pointing
for-
the right way this time.
Yeah.
Over there.
Oh, let me pull it up
Chat,
real
is it over
quick.
there?
I
Yeah.
don't know. I guess it's different for
Thank,
some.
thank you, chat. Here, I'll do both. Thank
Wait,
you this way.
Some do this way, some do that way.
Yeah.
We'll get it.
Right.
Thanks, chat.
Hit like and subscribe.
Yeah. You want to see more? Hit that little alarm button. You'll know when we come on,
Smash
guys.
that
It's gonna
like
be
button.
great.
There you go.
This has been Casey and I said I'll see you guys next time.
Oh no,
I
the whole
can't
stream's
top
gonna get
that.
taken down.
Oh
Casey's gonna-
no, sorry, Casey.
All right,
Well, guys, thanks so much for
Have
having
a wonderful
us
night,
on.
everybody.